was convicted of transporting people for the purposes of prostitution, but taking that as a win, even though in theory he still faces up to 20 years in prison, Kira.
And acquitted of the most serious charges. Bernarda, Brian, Aaron, thank you. We're going to return you now to your regular programming. For some of you, that is Good Morning America, but I do want to tell you about an ABC News special, Verdict, the Diddy trial, that will air tonight, 10 Eastern. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. The entire team will be here for World News Tonight with David Neer. I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks for staying with us.
He's still facing jail time.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo, and we are following that breaking news. Sean Diddy Combs has been found not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, or sex trafficking. He was found guilty of transportation for the purposes of prostitution. Court has now been adjourned as the judge decides whether he will release Combs today. I want to bring in ABC's Rena Roy outside court and ABC News entertainment contributor.
So he only was found guilty of engaging with prostitute transportation.
In the courtroom, really, when this verdict came down.
Diane, this was an incredibly emotional moment. Sean Combs was visibly overcome with emotion. His feet were shaking under the table as the verdict was being read, and he then got down on the ground, kneeling in prayer when he found out that he had been acquitted on the most serious charges, racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He turned to his family and he said, "I'm coming home, baby." And there were loud...
He already done called Cowboys and Angels.
We know that his family has been here to support him almost every single day of this trial. They actually just walked out of the golden doors of this federal courthouse here in Lower Manhattan just a couple of minutes ago. And there are a lot, you can't see now because there's a bus here, but there are a lot of supporters here out here for him. Of course, people who also weren't so happy about this verdict. There's a lot of
he gonna do it again.
Covering this trial since day one as well.
I wonder what the jury gonna think when they find out that he got some more charges that just came about.
Things are not over because the judge still has to weigh whether or not Combs will be released as early as today. That's what his defense attorneys are asking for, but prosecutors are arguing against that. So they both have several hours. The judge wants letters back from them making their cases at around 1 o'clock, and then we will potentially hear later today.
Less than an hour.
Will be released, Diane.
And I want to bring in our legal contributor, Bernarda Villalona, as well, here on set with me. Bernarda, acquitted of the most serious charges, still found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. Each of those carries a maximum. Each of the 2 counts he was found guilty of there carries a max of 10 years. So what does the judge have to consider now, not only in terms of sentencing, but in terms of whether or not Sean Combs should be released today?
Sean Combs should be released today. He was acquitted of the most serious charges, and those also having to deal with violence. I was at his bail applications for the 3 times that he made a bail application. And the huge sticking point by the prosecution, by the government, is the violence itself, and that he was intimidating witnesses and still in contact and breaking the rules while he was in custody. Now at this moment, those were allegations. Now a jury of his peers has spoken and has found him not guilty. So those are no longer allegations. So he should be free. In terms of what the judge is going to consider is 1, that he was acquitted. 2, that the sentence that he is facing, there is not a mandatory minimum. So technically the judge can even sentence him to probation or to time served. 3, whether there's a risk of flight of him not returning to face sentencing date. That is highly unlikely, especially since Sean Combs knows what the exposure is, and also that for him to flee, it would give him a bigger exposure and almost guaranteed a jail sentence if he weren't to come back. So the judge should release him today. In terms of sentencing, now that's a long process there. The first thing that's going to take place is that the judge is going to order the Department of Probation to do a probation report and a probation interview of Sean Combs and do a deep dive into his background and ultimately make a recommendation as to what the sentence is going to be. Best believe that that intercontinental video is going to come back into light when it comes to sentencing, because the judge can take into account criminal acts that he wasn't convicted of when determining a sentence, a just sentence for Sean Combs. But given that he has a lack of criminal record in terms of something serious, it's highly likely that the judge will give him something in relation as to time served, or maybe just a few more months in terms of being incarcerated, since he was found guilty of 2 counts that technically can run consecutive.
Now, the prosecution has already said they're going to be seeking a severe sentence here, or a significant sentence. What do you think that means in terms of what they're going to at least try for?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if the prosecution doesn't ask for the max and ask for the sentences to be consecutive.
Just 20 years.
Yes, for 20 years, the max, because it's 10 years max as to each of these counts, and they can actually run consecutive. The prosecution is going to name out that, look, when it came to transportation to engage in prostitution, we're not talking about just 1 instance or 2 instances. During their closing arguments, they put up a photograph of 27 men that were actually trafficked as a result of doing these freak-offs and these hotel nights. So the prosecution is going to try to seek the maximum amount of sentence, and also include those acts that he was found not guilty of in terms of that intercontinental video, and get statements from Jane and Cassie in order to try to move this judge to try to get the maximum sentence, which again is highly unlikely.
Bernarda, the defense argued throughout that all of the sexual encounters in this case were consensual. Does the fact that the jury found him not guilty of sex trafficking mean they agreed with that?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the prosecution has to prove his case beyond a reasonable doubt. So just because a person is found not guilty doesn't mean that they necessarily said that they found that they weren't any freak-offs, or that it wasn't consensual, but that there was some seed of doubt that prevented them from saying that he is guilty. When they say not guilty, it's not saying that they're proclaiming that Sean Combs is innocent. What it is that that person, Sean Combs, is being acquitted. That verdict says that the prosecution did not prove this count beyond a reasonable doubt, but not necessarily that they believe in their heart that Sean Combs didn't commit these acts and that it wasn't consensual.
And I want to bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, who's been at the court throughout this whole trial. Aaron, what sticks out to you about the way this verdict came down and the discussions that these attorneys are now having as they write letters to the judge about whether or not Combs should be released?
They have several hours now, Diane, to make the case whether Sean Combs should be released on bail. Combs himself offered $1 million bail, and the judge indicated to him that he did not want to go back to NDC, the federal lockup in Brooklyn where he's been held. And that's when he clasped his hands together as if to say, that's exactly right, Judge. And so the judge said he would decide today whether to release him on bail. Prosecutors asked for a few hours to put their letter in opposing it. He does still, as prosecutors point out, face the possibility of 20 years in prison on the conviction of transportation for the purposes of prostitution. And the way prosecutors see it, he's a flight risk and a potential danger. Even though they did not prove the sex trafficking or the racketeering conspiracy, prosecutors still told the judge he has a predilection to committing crimes, including violent crimes, and represents a potential danger, particularly to women. He also, we should say, Diane, faces at least 5 dozen civil lawsuits that accuse him of acts of violence. We'll see where those shake out in the coming weeks and months, but Combs would no doubt like to try and fend those off as quickly as possible. Outside here, Diane, there is a crowd of supporters that looks like they're going to hang out to see whether he walks through those golden doors sometime this afternoon.
And I want to drill down on those civil suits with our legal contributor, Brian Buckmeyer, also here with me on set. Brian, I think it's in the realm of 60 civil lawsuits against Sean Combs right now. How does this verdict impact those cases?
Yeah, so about 60 or 59 civil lawsuits. I believe 14 of them involve a minor. And so the impact for those cases on this is somewhat positive in some lights, actually, ironically enough, and somewhat negative. The negative, obviously, in that he was found not guilty of the RICO conspiracy and the sex trafficking. So if there's any allegations that mirror that in these civil complaints, Sean Combs is going to feel very confident that he might be able to win those. But different allegations, different alleged victims. And I think, as Bernarda pointed out as well, there's a different standard there. And it comes to a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, a much higher standard than the civil standard of preponderance of evidence, more likely than not, or 51%. But the reason why I say it could be potentially positive for those filing civil lawsuits is if Sean Combs was found guilty of that racketeering conspiracy, there would be a forfeiture application in terms of trying to dismantle that racketeering conspiracy, that criminal enterprise, where the federal government would have their opportunity to take money out of Sean Combs before the civil lawsuits would have had their opportunity. So in a way, Sean Combs may still have enough money in his pocket that those filing civil lawsuits might be able to find a victory through that process. I compare and contrast to, for example, the R. Kelly trial, where he was found guilty of racketeering conspiracy, and there's a forfeiture there, and many of the people filing civil lawsuits against R. Kelly found it difficult to win in those cases.
And I want to bring in Kelly Carter to talk about the cultural impact here, because Kelly, it's hard to understate or overstate, I should say, the role of Sean Combs in music and culture in general. I mean, not only was he a legend in rap music, he was a legend in music in general, as a producer, as an artist, and then on to becoming a businessman with an empire. What does this mean for all that now?
I mean, I think it means a lot. The truth of the matter is that it almost didn't really matter what the outcome was of this trial. The conversation changes immediately about what his legacy is. You know, this is a person who really touched every corner of pretty much every industry, not just music, not just spirits, not just fashion, politics, pretty much every industry he touched. He really ushered the hip-hop generation into the mainstream, into commercialism, and made it the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry that it is right now. And I think,
Hey,
you know,
Peach.
regardless of the outcome, it's going to be difficult for people to unhear some of that testimony and to certainly unsee, you know, that
They say money talk.
now intercontinental
Less than an hour.
video, that was
He's
released
still
by
guilty.
Cassie in 2016. And I think that
He still. You said of all charges, Gary.
his life is like as a businessman moving
Y'all
forward,
said
but
he
I
was
don't expect to see
gonna be found
something
innocent
in
on,
the
not guilty on
I definitely
all
expect to see
charges.
dissecting his
So you ain't tell me
legacy,
nothing.
for a good while now.
And we do have a statement from Cassie Ventura's attorney, Douglas Wigdor.
So don't
and
come in
he
here
says, and I'm
popping your
quoting,
collar.
"This
Y'all
entire
said he was
criminal
gonna be
process
found
started when
guilty,
our client,
not
Cassie
guilty on
Ventura,
all
refused
counts.
to file her civil complaint in November of 2023. Although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking, Cassie
He not
found
gonna walk.
reasonable
He
doubt.
still got
She paved the way for a jury
up to
find
20
him guilty of
years.
transportation to engage in
So stop
prostitution.
lying.
By coming forward with her experience, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry.
He's facing 20 years. So how you saying he gonna walk on all charges?
Reservation that we believe and support our client, who showed exemplary courage throughout this trial.
Now you saying Diddy finna walk in 3 years. Now it's in 3 years.
Talk about the misconduct they say has persisted for decades.
He got 2
without
counts.
repercussion. Bernarda, I want to go to you on this point of what this
Okay.
means for
He
future
paid him off.
precedent here. Does a verdict like this deter future potential witnesses in similar cases?
I think it definitely does. A verdict like this does deter victims and witnesses from coming
Absolutely.
forward. I think when you're talking,
He gonna rape
about
somebody
the
tonight. He gonna
perpetrators,
ape somebody tonight.
who has power,
If he get out.
who has money, who had the key to this.
I don't have to humble
I think
myself
because
to
we're
who?
looking at it,
Fool, you
wait,
crazy?
the prosecution gave
Are you
the
crazy?
they had, and
Are you
they gave it to
crazy?
him, and
Humble myself for Diddy?
what about little old?
Now you gonna make me cuss you
What
out.
about just regular perpetrator from down the block?
Let him come sleep in your mama bed, your sister bed, your daughter bed. Humble myself to Diddy? You finna make me cuss you out. I don't humble myself to nobody but God, and he ain't my God, he yours. He your God. Let's be clear. Let me stop this real quick, real fast. He your God. You in his ass. I'm not. Don't ever, ever come over here telling me to humble myself to not now person on this earth. Do you understand? I humble myself to God. I would never honor myself to a fucking predator. Now you done lost your mind. You may need to go on and leave because you done pissed me off telling me to humble myself to a fucking predator. Are you crazy? Yeah, you in his ass. No, I ain't mad. You for no reason other than you telling me to humble myself to Diddy. Humble myself to Diddy? Are you crazy? You crazy as hell. Bye. Bye. Let's go, y'all.
That part of it. And do you think there are any legal lessons learned there?
I think there are legal lessons in terms of how to bring this case. I think for federal prosecutors, they've used the RICO statute in very creative ways. If you want to talk about R. Kelly, if you want to talk about Donald Trump, there have been people who have been in the spotlight who have bemoaned and said that this is not how the statute is meant to be. And I think this might be one of the first major setbacks in this use of the statute in this kind of new wave. And I think this is going to be
has made a
agreeing
bid
with what Bernardo
saying
said,
he
but
got
I'll add on
released
to
for he got not
of
guilty for
how
less
do we
serious
define
things,
RICO
but it
going
is,
forward?
right?
Who fits into a RICO? What is a criminal enterprise? And are we going to open or close off how we now progress or move forward in terms of evaluating should we use this statute for these different types of enterprises?
All right. Rena, Brian, Bernardo, Kelly, thank you all.
This fool told me to humble myself
At that courthouse
today.
in the very beginning. Also, for more on today's verdict, catch the ABC News live show Burden of True Proof, the case against Diddy, streaming tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, the rough weather is complicating Republicans' race to pass President Trump so
Right? Mark Agnifilo thinks that he should be released right now on $1 million bond, give up his passport to his family, and be able to go between Florida and New York City. And again, I literally sat there and said, this man who, even when, as Maureen Comey said, when prosecution was watching, this man was able to, even while prosecution was watching, was able to do what? He was able to go back and forth. Even while the prosecution was watching, he still was able, even when prosecution was watching, to break the law, commit this. He was still hiring escorts. He was still ready to go, and they are trying to get him off. Again, congratulations to the Dream Team for doing what they do. But again, do you see all these idiots walking around wanting to fight me, mad I have security, and they can't be a man and use their
Wanting to fight her.
This is what the jury enabled, and this is the world the jury wants to live in. They sent a clear signal that if you beat someone, hit someone, expose someone that's indignity, that's what their money and power can actually buy. Okay?
So they're trying to jump on her?
Blood pressure support takes more than innovation.
Again,
it takes
at
vision.
the end of the day,
A
they
human
focus on what they can.
A bunch of dusty men-identified women that patriarchy never worked for, but they're still going to support it
in the game they can.
And a bunch of men that's mad that they're broke, mad that they don't get the views. Even people that today, oh, you need to apologize. Are you going to send super chats back? Baby, is it that? Does it make you that
Super
mad?
chats back?
Make you that mad?
Are you crazy? These people are crazy as hell.
Sexual abuse. Does it make you that mad that there were so many people that actually did the right thing? At the end of the day, it is not a game. At the end of the game, it is not a game. And now Diddy's people have caused such a commotion that even when they won, even though he might be facing 20 years, they are still calling the boys in blue, even when he won. Again, everybody's looking and they want to see what my opinion is and what I'm going to do. And I still stand 10 toes down. Thank you, Sam. It's okay. Listen. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Listen, hey, what's up, girl? Lovely Ty, can I get... Hold on. Can I get it?
Don't push me away, right?
Listen. Listen, these men these men are out here. They want to lay hands and feet on me. Thank God I got security.
Yes,
But
she
they
do. She got top flash. She got 1 and 2. She got plenty.
and there's
sale, honey.
And there's a few in the cut that y'all don't see. So listen, thank you, baby, for
Why they want to put hands and feet on her? She ain't done nothing but report it.
What did you feel? Listen, for everybody that doesn't know, this is the queen of YouTube herself, Lovely T. Please make sure y'all support and join her Discord.
What they want to put hands and feet on her for?
Discord. I didn't even know that. But
But you know what? On my burner account. So listen, tell me, when you heard
They should have put hands and feet on Diddy.
what did you think and feel?
Okay, I felt like I said before, the RICO was an overreach. I don't believe that there was a RICO. I don't think there was enough. This is not a case of BMF. I don't think he did this and his employees did this under the guise of, they're moving drugs, they're moving weight. So I didn't feel like that, but I'm glad he got charged with something.
Yeah.
And they had the receipts for what they charged him with. And like I said, this is going to set a precedence.
Okay? This is going to shake up the industry. This is going to wake people up to let people know you cannot go around abusing people. You cannot go around taking people's talents, taking their God-given gifts, chewing them up and spitting them out.
Facts.
So this is going to be a wake-up call because this is bigger than Diddy. We are talking about a
That's
demonic
true.
industry.
That's true.
Everything from Hollywood actors, girl, to the modeling industry.
That's true.
Amber Crombie and Fitch folks.
True.
Yes. Harvey Weinstein.
True.
Yes. And now hip-hop is getting a taste, okay? And
Facts.
you gotta ask yourself.
That's facts.
See how she's an OG? Okay, we gotta talk about character. This is a man.
Character and integrity. They don't have none.
What do we put a lot of people on? But where are these people today? See, when you get in trouble, you find out who's really there for you. Why was nobody?
It wasn't
there
about
to support
facts.
him outside of attention-seeking Kanye? Who
It wasn't about facts. We know that. That guy went in there.
Hush. But that's just my opinion. Outside of Kanye, who else came up here to support Diddy? Ask yourself that, okay? When I can watch an interview of these grown men, day 26, breaking down crying,
Facts.
years
Facts.
later,
That case is coming. That case is coming.
That tells you that something sinister was going on
Facts.
at Bad Boy.
Facts.
Okay? So we're not just going to knock that and throw that out the window. Like, I get everybody's point where they're like, oh, they're trying to take down a black man and this and that.
No, black men shouldn't have been doing that.
But at what point are we going to hold our own accountable?
Facts.
We have to be able to hold our own accountable. You just can't treat people any type of way and then think you can get away with it. And the thing is, he knew what he was doing was wrong because guess what? When he was on the Breakfast Club, he said that he would not allow his twins to date older men. He would not allow. So if you're willing to protect your own daughters, why are you not treating other men's daughters as if they're your own?
Right.
Why are you out here, pimping out or whatever you're doing to Cassie? And like I said, I give Cassie grace because she was young. He got her when she was young. Jane Doe don't get that much grace. Jane Doe, I'm sorry. I don't agree with Jane Doe. Jane Doe.
What you mean, Delirious? This my platform, and I must talk. Are you telling me to be quiet? Because I'm finna remove you.
Yes, her testimony. You think so? Because of that,
Girl, you better shut up.
Because everybody knew her lore. On the jury, if they even followed a little bit along or did a quick research. Right. That's an interesting theory. I think that's why they lost their account books because of Jane Doe. But and what about the Cassie one being lost? The sex trafficking on Cassie. That was interesting. You know, I mean, we can't win them all.
Right, Terrence.
We have to look at it like that. True. I still think that this is still going to set a precedent.
A black man don't need to bring down his black people.
Force people to move smarter in this industry. And another thing, talk about this.
I thought you knew. I thought you
I
knew.
want a lot of young girls
and don't ever come back.
Media to understand everything that glitters is not gold. A lot of y'all look at stuff and y'all see these Instagram, personas and their lifestyle and these trips and these bags and these shoes. Okay, understand that they're only showing you a highlight reel. Yeah. So I really hope that people take from this case, not just the salaciousness, not just the sexual exploits, not just the baby oil, but understand that everything that glitters is not gold. Yeah. Everybody thought Daphne, you know what I'm saying, like the whatever. From Scooby-Doo? Yeah. Was doing her thing. Yeah. And Velma too. Yeah. And Scrubby.
Exactly.
And now when you look at it, it's like, damn, that's where all that came from? Exactly. That's how you got your riches? You see Barbie, Scooby-Doo, Daphne, Velma, Wendy, all of them doing the thing, but it is, everything that you see is not gold. Yes. Mama, let me just ask you one more question, because you bring up a very, very important point. Diddy has a band of idiots, broke, dusty, ashy, and yes, I'm talking to you, broke, dusty, ashy supporters and dusty, ashy, male-identified men, right? Okay. Listen. I'm gonna hold you for what. Okay, thank you. Okay, no problem. Bye. Okay, so listen. A hit dog will holler, baby. We summoned them. A hit dog will holler. A hit dog will holler. A hit dog will holler. So listen, let me just tell you something, right? Because it's an interesting point that Lovely T.
Respectfully, Maggie, no, they're not.
Power, influences, Diddy's equal. They refuse to come and support this man because they know something was wrong. But there are a million broke, dusty, desperate, bitch-ass
Let's go,
men
Tisa.
out here trying to bully women.
They trying to bully her now.
Of merit, of whatever. Anybody of note and merit is not out here. But you got dusty people. Y'all, so listen, let's get back into what happened with the prosecution, right? let's get back into what happened with the...
So now they trying to bully her. They trying to strong arm her.
Let's get what happened into this, right? Let's get what,
Go Tisa, go Tisa, go Tisa, go Tisa. It's your birthday. Go Tisa. Yeah.
Mark Acapulco wanted a mom. Listen.
Go Tisa, go Tisa, go Tisa.
Anyway, right?
They're trying to bully her.
For government opposed the application for bail. Listen, she stood up there. Maureen Comey said the person is found guilty with clear and convincing evidence, right?
I can't believe they're trying to bully her.
It does not matter whether he is a flight risk. We need to look at the seriousness. There is a reason. There is a reason why he is being held in jail.
Did we get Vaughn out of here?
That he hired people. He did first labor.
Yeah, Vaughn needs to be removed permanently.
He said it was prolific distribution.
I don't want your kind over here. You're a predator-minded person as well. Get out of here.
Yes to. They said that they're going to push for 20 years in jail, the maximum. Now, there is a chance that Diddy could get probation, but with 2 acts of the man back, he's looking at 20 years in jail. He continued, even when he knew he was under federal investigation, he continued with a litany of drugs. He knew he was under scrutiny, right? This is horrible assault, drugs, escorts, freak-off supplies, and it was uncontested by Diddy. They said, given all the evidence, they believe he 100% poses a danger. He is a real risk, and they 100% believe he will continue to commit crimes. Okay?
Absolutely.
They said that literally, besides the fact that he was found not guilty of 3 different crimes, right? He actually 100% is a danger to society. And I just want to actually say, okay? I just want to actually say, you look at Diddy's supporters, you look at the sheer level of stupidness and ignorance. And this isn't to all, these are the people out here glazing, obviously don't have real jobs, or maybe they are content creators, you could say that about me, that were literally trying to glaze and see what they could get. Again, hear me out, right? Anybody that was notable, anybody that was respectable, anybody that was anything, they refused to actually be. I'm out in the courthouse. It is pandemonium. I would have showed y'all what was going on, but I didn't want to give the Glazers any content, any whatever. So I said, I'm going to keep the camera on myself because that's what y'all came to see. But it's pandemonium out here. My point of the matter is, right, and it's about 85 degrees and humid. And I got this jacket on, baby. I'm out here working for y'all. I want to give a thank you for everybody that gave a super chat and supported. But again, the level of ignorance that people are really trying to act like the federal government and numerous victims didn't come forward. The fact that people are trying to act like there was no basis for this. The fact that people are trying to act like this was a social media campaign that went too far. The fact that people don't care about the abuse. They don't care about the victims. They don't care because, and this is why the world looks like the way it was, as long as a rich man has money, then you can get anything. And you can even get grown men to come out here and try to fight women out here reporting the truth. Again, I will say this to anybody saying, how do you feel? I 100% still believe the victims. I believe that this was a miscarriage of justice. I do believe, after what we heard Lovely T say, and a lot of people, that this actually moved the needle forward. This moved the needle forward for people that are victims of SA, for people that are. I feel, and my heart breaks for the people that came and testified. Was Jane the best witness? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm actually really shocked that they didn't even find out with Cassie. That they told them that it was okay for them, right?
Oh, I gotta check this out. Hold on.
And I'm scared for the, I don't know, I believe that this was a miscarriage of justice. I do believe, after what we heard Lovely T say, and a lot of people, that this actually moved the needle forward. This moved the needle
Right,
forward
Shiloh.
for people that are
It don't
victims
erase
of
the fact that they were
SA,
still
where people are.
trapping.
I feel, and my heart breaks for the people that came and testified. Was Jane the best witness? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm actually really shocked that they didn't even find out with Cassie. That they told them that it was okay for them, right? Listen. Again, I will say this. I am scared for anyone who testified against them, because Diddy is very, very vindictive. And listen, and I'm scared for the people that testified against them. I'm scared. Listen, and again, baby, thank you. Listen, again, we saw this with Drew Dixon. We saw this with so many people from the Me Too. We saw this even with the Harvey Weinstein. The way that there are people, power is set up, that there are people that will, listen, that there are people emboldened, because not even that they have power, because they want to protect that structure, because they think one day they'll have an opportunity to literally destroy people, to hurt people, to not do anything. You guys, don't worry, I'm 100% safe. Shout out to my baby. Thank you. Listen, I'm 100% safe. Don't worry about it, okay? But I do want to say that, let's look at who the jurors are, because I do want to talk about that, right? Let's look at who the jurors actually
Well, one
are,
thing is for
and
sure,
who
he's
were
gonna
the
do it
jurors and
again.
what they
He can't help
actually,
himself.
what they actually told us, okay?
And it should have
Where are
been
the
a
jurors? We
hung
have
jury
information on the Diddy
over a
trial
not
that set
guilty
this man free. And who
if
would
they
have
was
thought that the
deadlocked
holdout,
yesterday.
right?
What
Who would
happened
have thought the
overnight
holdout
in an
was the
hour?
best thing ever. So what do we have
Bullshit.
with the jurors, right? What do we have with the jurors, right? Here's what it goes. They said, here's what we know about the jurors. Juror number 2 is a 69-year-old
Right,
man who
baby
works as a
Ruth.
massage therapist in Manhattan. He has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting from New York University. Juror 5 is a 31-year-old man who works as an investment analysis. His hobbies include golf, tennis, video games, and he described himself as an active churchgoer. Juror number 25 is a 51-year-old man who works as a scientist and lives in Manhattan with his domestic partner. Juror number 28 is a 30-year-old woman who lives in the Bronx with her mother and brother. She works as a deli clerk at a grocery store. Juror number 55 is a 42-year-old woman who lives in Manhattan with her fiance. She works at a nursing home and said she is not a fan of news. Juror number 75 is a 68-year-old man who's retired and previously worked in finance. He lives in Westchester County with his wife and said he listens to old Indian music and likes to play cricket and volleyball. Juror number 116. He was a 68-year-old man who lives in Westchester County with his wife and kids. He's a retired lineman. Juror 160 is a 43-year-old woman who is a physician's assistant and works with elderly patients. She lives in Westchester with her husband and kids. Juror number 184 is a 39-year-old man who lives in the Bronx with his brother. He's a social work program supervisor and a part-time security guard who has a master's degree in social work. Juror 201 is a 67-year-old man who has 2 adult children and works as a logistics and analysis. He lives alone in Westchester County.
They've been doing that.
217
The news
is
did
a
it first.
74-year-old woman who works
Soji.
as a treatment coordinator.
They
and has
did
a
that
bachelor's
yesterday.
degree in sociology. She lives alone in Manhattan and she does not have children. Juror number 230 is a 57-year-old man who works as a manufacturing architect and has a master's degree.
All the
in
major
mechanical
news networks
engineering.
did that
He
yesterday.
lives with his wife. I'm good. I'm cool. He lives with his wife and kids in Westchester County. This juror started as an alternate and replaced the juror who actually left. They replaced the juror who actually left. You guys, listen. At the end of the day, Diddy supporters are idiots. The male-identified women are, in fact, idiots. But more... Great first day, huh? But at the end of the day, here's what I do. Everybody wants my comment. I don't know what everybody expected. Did you think I was going to come with my head bowed? Did you think I was going to cry? No, we are in this for the long haul. The victims did not get justice. There's a chance that he could do 20 years in jail. There's a fact he could get 5 or 6. We actually really don't know. The whole point
I want
of
him
the matter
to
is
I don't
stand
care
with the
how
victim.
I want
I don't
him to
regret a
have
thing
to
I
go
said. I don't
to
regret a thing
prison.
I did. I don't need
I
a
want him to
man's
have to
money,
sit in
fame,
that cell, a
popularity,
prison,
wealth.
a
I don't need
federal
the clout.
prison.
I don't need the clicks. I don't need the views. I came here and I spoke the truth, and that resonated with all of y'all on what listen, I literally listen, I literally, again, I get this as a story for everybody. I get that everybody wants to, I get this as a story for everybody. I get that everybody wants to, and I get it, because this was a story for me. But I was here, and I stand here, once again, for the victims of abuse, for the victims of SA, for the people. I don't need a click, I don't need a view, I don't need a dollar, I don't need clout, I don't need fame, I don't need to be invited to a party, I don't need to be on any show, I don't need to be
Bring
on
your
any
own
headline.
liquor.
I need to sit here on YouTube and speak my truth. And I don't care how many people fall prey to power. I don't care how many people kiss up and lick the feet of the tyranny of evil men. I don't care. I will always stand here on the side of the righteous, on the side of the victim, on the side of the abused, and on the side of justice. And even when a jury who I think did not get justice, did not get it right, I still stand here. Because like Lovely T said, this is the beginning. This is the beginning, okay? This is the beginning. Hopefully, this is the beginning. But you see, even from the Diddy thing, about how many people that don't even have access to money and power, but they hope, they wish, they pray, right? How many people will do whatever they can just to uphold power? And that's why we have the power structures. That's how slavery, that's how racism, that's how, there's so much stuff going on that you even now see people licking the boots of power. But thank God there is YouTube, and we don't need to cower. We don't need to be afraid. We can speak our truth. And no matter what anybody says, that truth will remain unchanged. It will remain unchanged, and it will not come with tears. It won't, even though y'all know I'm a big crybaby. It will not come with regret. It will not come with, oh, maybe. And it won't come with MF and apologies. I stand with what I said. And I still stand. This is a miscarriage of justice. I hope the prosecution does appeal. But if they don't, I hope that that sentence is aggravated for the Mann Act.
Well, they definitely got reasons to appeal.
And I am sickened. I am
Hi,
disgusted
JT.
at the people that will stand with clear evil. You would never want that for yourself. You would not want that for your children. You would never want that for the people
Absolutely.
you love. But for everybody else, it's fine. For everybody else, it's fine, right?
Shout out to
Because
Usher
it's a
for saying
story,
Diddy would
it's
never
whatever. You guys listen,
be able to
when I say I
keep
feel
his
like I came to
kids.
war, I sat out here while I was
Fuck no.
surrounded with
Why
men
y'all all up
wanting
in
to
his
fight me,
ass? Let your
trying to
kids
fight
go
me.
stay
But
with
it is
him.
a new day. I will not bow down. I will not stop, and I will never
Hi, Joyce.
apologize for standing on the right side. And no matter how many people will find selling their souls for obviously judging by the way their dusty ass attitude is for nothing, that will never be me. The only thing I need to do is be right with myself and know that when I go to sleep, I did my best to make the world a better place. I did my best to make sure that people knew the full time. I did my best to fight against ignorance, saying as if we made up these accusations, as if we brought this to the federal government, as if this wasn't. Let me tell you something. And this is what everybody forgets.
Hey,
you saw
Deborah.
the interviews with Dawn.
How are
You
you?
saw Aubrey. You saw Day 26. You saw Gina's interview. You saw Misa Hilton Brim saying everybody knows something's wrong with you. Everybody knows something's wrong with them. You saw all these people go in. You knew, like Lovely T said, everybody knows there's something insidious going on. Everybody knows the mob types. Everybody knows the whispers. Everybody knows the rumors. And when people finally came out, Diddy settled with Cassie 24 hours later for $20 million. And you got glazers out here dusty and mad out of everything that's going on. They worried about super chats. Sorry, I'm sorry. If I can, I wouldn't donate any super chats.
Somebody said
But
give
they're
your
mad
super chats
about the
back.
Glazers, and
Wow.
they're doing what they can. Again, this world is lost, but I still will always stand on the side of right. The fact that people are acting right.
Give them
And
people
what did
back
that
their
jury
coochies
do?
and booties that you took. How about
Because they were
that?
like, oh, I don't feel he needs to. They literally unleashed him for him to have retribution on anyone that opened their mouth against him. anyone
That's
that
true.
stood against them, anyone that dared speak
I'll help you.
truth
There you
to
go.
power.
There you go. I blocked you
it's
for
sad.
it. Bye,
And this
Lionel.
is the world we live in. But you know what? I do want to say this. It's like my dad always told me, okay? The number one thing you can do in life is recognize what reality is, right? Is literally recognize what reality is. Not what you want it to be. Not what you hope it should be. Not what you wish it to be. But recognize power for what it is, right? Recognize reality in the world we live in for what we is. You can always dream for a better future. You can hope. You can do things to move. But if you don't actually have a reality check about where the ground is, how are you ever going to jump up and fly? If you don't have a reality check about where the ground is, how are you ever going to build? For everybody that stood with the victims, we have a reality check. We have a world. People say, oh, pray, thoughts of prayer. People will sit there and put all this stuff. When it happens to them or someone they love, they got a lot to say. Oh no, somebody help. But the reality check we hear is we live in a world where most people don't care. We live in a world where people will turn the other cheek and say no because somebody has power, or they feel they see themselves in them, or somebody has influence. And that's okay, because today,
now it was a booty in the a sausage grab for Diddy.
Testifying, and it was a sacrifice.
It was a booty grab for him. He was grabbing people's cookies. Now it was a cookie in a sausage grab.
And then and torn apart, and the most humiliating, private, degrading parts of her life.
What do you mean she's a professional victim? Stop lying. Don't lie on her.
Say anything. At the end of the day,
don't lie. Stop lying on her. So now you finna lie on her and make this say stop that. I don't tolerate that. You're not finna lie on her.
At the end of the day, the only thing they care about, right? The only thing they care about, okay, is themselves, the people they love.
Yeah, because he made her.
Adjacent,
she wasn't doing it before. He made her do that, Ronnie. Stop that. She's not doing it now.
In a sick way, I'm very glad that we got to see reality, and we got to see the country we live in, and we got to see what was truly in people's hearts. The people that are celebrating Diddy went free, keep that in mind. The friends and family you thought you knew that was staying quiet because they were too.
Why his son doing it now?
What they really felt.
Why is his son doing it?
Oh, like maybe this might make me look like a monster too.
Why is his son repeating the same thing his daddy,
Instagram, whatever, celebrating,
was accused of?
Hip hip hooray, doing whatever. Take note. Take note, because this is the reality, and this is what we need to live in, and this is what we're going to use to build. This is not the end for victims' rights. It's not. It's not the end for sex trafficking rights. It's not the end for anything that we're doing. I feel my heart breaks for anybody that actually knows what was on the line. For anyone, and this is why when they were doing
I hope
jury,
whoever he put hands on next. I hope okay, Ronnie, I said what I said. Don't come over here lying on her. Now this is my platform. I'm gonna say what the fuck I want to, and if you don't like it, beat your feet. Go ahead and remove yourself. You're not finna Diddy strong arm me. You're not finna force me to go along with what you're talking about. You got that Diddy spirit, Ronnie. You got that Diddy spirit. You like forcing people.
Ignorance that not even an expert.
Yeah, you can't do that here.
Explaining what happened could.
Okay, so shut up.
If I could say anything
or leave.
About the prosecution's case, and I think the prosecution did a hell of a case, but if I could say anything about the prosecution's case,
you got that Diddy spirit.
I think they overestimated that people would do the right thing. I think they overestimated that people would apply the law. I think they overestimated that people would feel shocked and say that a monster that did these things should not be on the street. I think that is the only mistake the prosecution actually made. I think that's the only mistake that the prosecution actually made. The fact that they thought people would actually see themselves in someone else. I think they overestimated the amount of good, and I know I constantly do that in life. I've had my butt handed to me quite a lot. I think they overestimated the fact that people would, if given a chance, would 100% do the right thing. I think they overestimated that. I do. And I think at the end of the day, the fact that people are cheering that a known abuser, a known... It's sick. It's sick, but it is what it is. Welcome to reality, but it doesn't stop, right?
It should have been
doesn't
sequestered.
stop. We move forward. I get it, you guys. Ignore the trolls. The ignorance, again, the will of the many. My dad also told me, like, there's like in life, right? 70% of people are sheep, and they just want to follow. And if you tell them, no, 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 if you try to drag them out the cave, remember the cave? You try to drag them, like, no, no, you're looking at shadows. 70% of people will fight you, because how dare you disrupt their reality? How dare you disrupt with the truth, with the fact that they could be free? There's another 10%, right? So, hey, what's up? 70% are actually sheep. They want to follow. And if you try to tell them, guess what? I made a world where you can think for yourself. They will fight you because they don't want that. And then you have the other 30%. There's 10% that they look at those sheep and they say, I can make those sheep mine. I can make those sheep mine. I'll tell the sheep whatever they want, and I'll bring them out to the pasture. And I'll make sure that the sheep will work for me. I'll slaughter a few when I need to eat. I'll wear their hides. I'll do whatever I want. But I will use the sheep for my own will. And the 10% realize, because the sheep are just looking to follow, all they have to do is be strong. Might equals right. And those sheep will follow along. And then there's 10%. They see what's going on. They see the sheep, and they see the might equals right. They see the tyranny, and they see what the tyranny's doing. But they just look. Because they're observers and they're interested. They're like, how could the sheep do that? Oh my God. They watch it like it's a football game. They see what's going on, but they choose not to get involved for whatever reason. But they see clearly what's going on. They're not sheep. And then there's the 10%, and that's us. There's that 10% that you say no. You want to wake the sheep up. You want to wake the sheep. The sheep are fighting with you. You're begging them, please, you're going to slaughter. Hey, what's up? There's the 10% that you see what's going on with the tyranny. And just like the other 10% that's just sitting there, you see, but you're like, no, not on my watch. You want to educate the sheep. You want to help the sheep. At the very least, even if the sheep fight you, you say, I am going to create a world where the sheep can be free and happy with their dumb selves. But happy, dumb sheep, right? Happy, dumb sheep. And the tyranny always try to mobilize. The 10% that are the tyranny of evil men, they always try to mobilize the sheep to move against the 10% that want to make the better world something for everyone. But it's okay, you know? It's okay. And this isn't about the Diddy trial, because at the end of the day, I stand with everything I say. But it just shocks me the way, like, wow, people really don't care. But you know who does? We care. And we're here.
We don't play with God, MA lover.
My heart breaks for everybody that was a victim of
No,
abuse.
we don't play with God over here.
For everybody that risked themselves and stood on business. My heart breaks. And you know what? I'm going to stand.
Thank you, Rock City,
and it's okay.
Marv.
And people can cheer that a monster went free. And it's okay, because there's going to be a next time. And this was, like Lovely T said, it was a wake-up time. It was a wake-up call for everybody in the industry. It was a wake-up call that we need to do more work. It was a wake-up call that people will say one thing and go into the voting booth and vote for another thing. It was a wake-up call that people, these sheep.
It was a wake-up call that they went home and saw that they was going to try to keep them, make them come in tomorrow. And they said, oh, hell no.
Do we make a better world for the sheep? Do we make real lamb? See ya, girl. See ya. All right. Thank you, Mama. I'm good always. Thank you, Mama. All right. So listen, right? That was Lovely T. She's so sweet. So what do? Do we say F it and let the sheep go to slaughter? Or do we say no? We're going to stand firm. And it might not have been this time, but there will be another time. And there will be another time. And as much as I hope this would have been a leap, it was a small step forward. They got him a man. It could be 20 years. He could actually only get probation. At this point, I actually honestly don't know. The government is mad. I hope they appeal. They have 14 days to say if they appeal. Who knows? Diddy might actually just go home today. Again, but I hope to God for those people on the jury and these people out here acting a fool. I hope to God they never have to experience anything that Cassie felt. I hope to God they never have to, and anyone they love, and I mean this, never has to experience. I hope they can stay in their ignorant little sheep bubble for the rest of their lives. I hope to God no one they love ever has to experience one iota of what these women and men meant. And it's not just the people that testify. Everybody's going to act like Day 26, Dawn, Cassie, all this stuff didn't happen. I hope to God, I really hope to God that these people that are delighting in the tyranny of evil men, it's almost biblical. I hope to God they never have to know or feel. Again, Diddy's doing a tour, let them go. Diddy's doing this, Diddy's doing that, and listen.
No, he on
eyes of the law,
probation.
he
Sit
got
your
away
ass
with
down.
it. In my heart,
He's a
and what I
convicted
know,
felon.
right? And
He
I'm
is
sure
a
you're gonna try to
convicted
bring
felon.
religion in,
So
and
how
you're
it
gonna try
rings
this and that.
next time?
It wasn't
Oh,
all
let's
that
be
difficult,
clear.
right?
Let's be
In the
clear,
eyes of
Tisa.
one
Hold
eye.
on. He is now a convicted felon. So them other charges and accusations gonna ring a whole lot different. They're not gonna be able to say he's never been convicted. He don't have a record. Oh, he has a record now. He has a record now. So it's going to stick different with these others that's coming shortly behind. Let's go.
No is right. God has already judged Diddy, and I'm fine with what he actually judged. Again, Diddy looks like he will get some jail time. I don't think it's a fraction of what he should have. I'm sure they're going to appeal the sentencing and try to make sure that he never spends another moment in jail, right? Listen, at the end of the day, listen, again, Diddy supporters are busy yelling about this and that. The ignorance will always overflow. And congratulations to everybody. Congratulations to everyone. To all the content creators. Congratulations to all the content creators that took the Diddy package. I guess you bet on the right horse. I hope whatever they
See,
gave
I
you
ain't thirsty
was
like
worth it.
that.
I hope whatever
I ain't
clout
thirsty.
you think you're going to get from this, you got. I hope every time you went to sleep and you saw what was happening in the courtroom and twisted it around so that it could help Diddy taint the jury. I hope those gold nuggets were worth it. I hope to God you never experienced what was described in that courtroom, and I hope nobody you love ever experienced too.
Well, that's the
And I
only way they're
hope
going to learn.
one day you can look back on yourself and feel really, really proud about what you helped accomplish and the role that you played. Congratulations, you helped.
But the reality of it is a lot of these men and women who are okay with this have done the same thing in some capacity.
Pennies.
No didn't mean no
I
to
hope it
them.
was worth it. I always, when I was younger, like
Beating them to get what beating a person to get what they want. They're okay with that. That's just the bottom line.
And you know, remember how Edward, he sold his whole family out. Y'all know the story for Turkish delights. And when I was younger, I would be reading. No, actually, I watched the movie. All right, and I would be like, how? I watched the movie first, and then I read the books. And I was like, and I remember saying to myself, how did you sell out your whole family for Turkish delights? And me being a kid, I was like, yo, Turkish delights must be
CCNY,
chef's kiss.
he hosted
I
a
want some
celebrity
Turkish
basketball
delights.
game
And I remember,
concert
I waited. I
where
was old enough
shit
to travel
went
to Turkey. And
haywire.
I'm
Too many tickets were sold, perhaps not enough security. Puff was running the thing. 9 young people lost their lives.
He got away with
He
it.
survived that.
Yeah, he got away with that too.
In 1999, he may have fired a hammer inside of Club New York, hitting someone in the face. He went on trial, and a lot of people thought he wouldn't make it out, but he survived. In 1999, he beat the shit out of Steve Stout in his office. We thought he was going down. He survived. Even stuff like
he made a deal with the devil.
Passing of his greatest recording artist, or the entire music business basically falling apart.
He made a deal with the devil.
He survived all of that. He made even more as the music business fell apart. The story has always been Puff the Teflon Don, who can slide out of any problem. We're gonna see if he can do it one more time, or if we've come to the end of the road. One of the defining features of Puff's 30-year career is that he would get in trouble and always get out of it. In 1991,
He got a record this time.
At CCNY, he hosted a celebrity basketball game / concert where shit went haywire. Too many tickets were sold, perhaps not enough security.
It almost looked like a movie. I ain't gonna even lie.
Lost their lives. He survived that. In 1999, he may have fired a hammer inside of Club New York, hitting someone in the face. He went on trial, and a lot of people thought he wouldn't make it out, but he survived. In 1999,
that's why he able to slide out.
In his office. We thought he was going down. He survived. Even stuff
with all that baby oil.
The passing of his greatest recording artist, or the entire music business basically falling apart. He survived all of that. He made even more as the music business fell apart. The story has always been.
Hopefully he coming up next. I hope.
Slide out of any problem.
At least he's a convicted felon.
One more time.
And his future cases will ring different.
End of the road. One of the
Come on.
They'll bring you the tea. Welcome to Chronicle Speaks.
Let's see what she got to say.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
So we are officially at trial day number 35, but let's first recap trial day number 34. So yesterday, jurors continued deliberations after receiving the case the day before. Judge Arun Subramanian began the day by addressing a jury note.
That's it. It's a felon.
Asking whether handing someone a controlled substance qualifies as distribution. The judge responded by referencing jury instructions.
Even with that, they didn't do nothing with the facts of that.
Or hand over a substance and does not require a sale.
What's up, y'all?
He rejected both the prosecution's proposed one-word answer, yes, and the defense's suggestion to point jurors to full transcripts. Diddy, dressed in court attire, was seen whispering to his mother, Janice Combs, before leaving with the marshals. Inside the courtroom, his legal team gathered closely around him as deliberations continued. Later in the morning, the jury submitted another note, this time requesting transcripts of testimony from Cassie Ventura and a male escort by the name.
Hold on, let's hear what this.
For the family, for the love.
Oops.
The new project never stopped. I'm feeling the love for that too. Through this dark time, you know, y'all shed some light on me, so I want to say thank you. Shout out Ye. It's a dream come true to have a tape. Executive produced by him. We're going crazy. All the songs is crazy. Turn this up one time. My love, yeah, you complete me. Go check it out though. I love y'all. It's lit. Never stop. So what's up, y'all? I want to say thank you for all the love and support. For the family, we feel the love. Dropped a new project, never stop. I'm feeling the love for that too.
And he a pervert just like his daddy.
Some light on me, so I want to say thank you. Shout out Ye.
Now that's Diddy's son. Who got charges brought up on him? Civil.
They asked for Ventura's account of 3 major incidents. One including the alleged black eye at the Intercontinental Hotel following a freak-off. 2, the alleged violence at a New York hotel involving Philip. And 3, a trip to the Cannes Film Festival. Now, they also requested Philip's account of being paid for S3X with Ventura and allegedly witnessing Combs drag her by her hair into a bedroom while she screamed and apologized. There was a back and forth between prosecutors and the defense over how much of the transcript should be sent. Now, prosecutors wanted to limit the scope, while the defense pushed to include testimony about Cassie's $10 million settlement with the Intercontinental Hotel. At one point, the judge considered sending all of Cassie's testimony, which visibly frustrated Diddy. Ultimately, a shorter portion was agreed upon. Now, shortly before 4:30 p.m., the courtroom buzzed with activity. Combs was brought in from his holding cell, appearing stressed as he sat among his legal team. At 4:32, the judge announced that the jury had reached verdicts on 4 of the 5 counts. Count number 2, S3X trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion for victim 1. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution for victim 1. Count 4, S3X trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion for victim 2. and count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution for victim 2. However, the jury was deadlocked on count 1, the racketeering conspiracy charge, stating that they were unpersuadable opinions on both sides. The government had accused Diddy of leading a criminal enterprise involving his staff and associates to commit crimes involving S3X trafficking, kidnapping, bribery, arson, and obstruction since 2008, but the jury was clearly divided. As a result, the judge discussed of giving a modified Allen charge, which is a judicial instruction that encourages a deadlocked jury to continue working towards a unanimous verdict. Prosecutors were in favor, but the defense pushed back, arguing that it was premature. Ultimately, the judge agreed to hold off, instructing the jury only to continue deliberating and to keep an open mind. The court also discussed whether jurors should deliberate on Thursday, July 3rd, if needed. The defense didn't object, but asked the judge not to mention the option yet to the jury so they wouldn't feel rushed. The day ended with the judge telling the jury to return tomorrow and continue deliberations. Diddy sat silently in court throughout the day, surrounded by his lawyers, his mother Janice, his sister, and Dana Tran, who happens to be the mother of his youngest child. With 4 verdicts reached,
he going home
in the balance. All eyes are now on this jury. Let's continue with Diddy Verdict Watch, but before we do, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any news.
So he going home. Hold on, let me get there. Hold on. Why they quiet? Is he walking out? There go all these people running over there. He must be walking out. Oh, they running over there. But ain't no volume on it. Hold on, let me find it.
This case and so much more. Now let's get back into it. So it's 9:15 a.m. and Sean Combs is in the courtroom talking with his lead attorney, Ignifilo. Also in as well is Shapiro, Westmoreland, Driscoll, Steele, and the prosecutors are nowhere to be seen. At 9:30, Sean Combs is talking with his lawyer, Nicole Westmoreland, while 4 of his other attorneys are huddled to the side. Combs stands up, asking marshals if he's allowed to speak to his family, seated in the front row. Now back into his holding cell. At 10:01, there is movement in the courtroom. Combs' other lawyers have returned. There is word that a jury note is now available, but nothing has been confirmed as of yet. At 10:03, word has been given that there is a verdict in the U.S. versus Combs. At 10:06, the prosecutors have filled the seats at the front table. Sean Combs is still not brought back into the courtroom from his holding cell.
There has been a what?
At 10:10, Sean Combs is brought back into the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. He is seated with Brian Steele on his left, Terry Garagos on his right, and his family in the second row of the gallery. Judge Subramanian says, we have received a note at 9:52 a.m. It reads, we have reached a verdict on all counts. Anything to address before we bring our jury out? No, says the prosecution. No, says the defense. Judge says maintain order while the verdict is being read and until we have the jury out. Judge says I'll ask our deputy to bring back in our jury. Sean Combs remains seated. His 8 lawyers are standing up. Judge says all rise. Combs stands up and the jurors enter. Judge says, we have received your note. Juror number 5, have you reached a verdict? We have. Is it unanimous? It is. Please provide the verdict to the deputy. Juror number 5 hands it over. Judge says the deputy will inquire as to the verdict. Deputy says, in the matter of U.S. versus Sean Combs, count 1, not guilty. S3X trafficking of Cassie Ventura, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty. For Jane, S3X trafficking, not guilty. Transportation of prostitution of Jane, guilty. Judge continues, I ask the media not to question jurors about their deliberations. Jurors, you can contact our chambers. You gave up a lot these 10 weeks. It is inspiring. You work together, rain or shine. You answered the call of public service. That should give us hope. Judge says, I need to address a few matters with the lawyers. Then I will come back to meet with you. Jurors, all rise. The jurors exit for the last time. Judge says, I'll hear any application, then about a sentencing date. Agnifilo says he should be released. So this is just us talking until they continue with court. So transportation for prostitution, each count carries up to 10 years in federal prison per count. So that's up to 20 years total for both guilty counts, plus fines and supervised release. The exact sentence depends on several factors under the federal sentencing guideline, including whether violence, coercion, or exploitation was involved, Diddy's criminal history, and enhancements like the use of DRUGS, multiple victims, and abuse of power or wealth. Now, realistically, if the judge follows guideline ranges and considers the high-profile nature and disturbing testimony, Diddy could face anywhere from 5 to 20 years. A sentence on the lower end of 5 to 10 years is possible if the judge views these as isolated acts without aggravated factors. A sentence closer to the maximum of 20 years is possible if aggravating details weigh heavily. Agnifilo says the family is here and have signed a bond. He should be released today to go back and live on Two Star Island. Judge says this is just coming up right now. I will hear from the government in a moment. Are you proposing he just walk outside now? Yes. Are you proposing $1 million bond? Yes. And travel to Florida, New York, and LA? The U.S. opposes the release, says Comey. A person found guilty shall be detained until the judicial officer finds he is not likely to flee or be a danger. Comey continues, the defendant faces a maximum sentence of 20 years, even while faced with this case. He assaulted Jane. Here in New York, preparing to surrender, he had DRUGS in his hotel room and ready to commit this same offense. Judge says, I'm not going to resolve this second. I need to review the statutes. Ms. Comey, do you have a case in which bail was denied after a conviction under the Mann Act? You may confer and come back. We plan to be here the whole day. Comey says, I am aware of cases involving minors, but we intend to raise relevant conduct at sentencing, the DRUGS, and violence. Judge says, I'll like letters from each side. When? Comey says, a few hours. Judge says, I think that makes sense. Mr. Combs does not want to go back to the MDC. He is shaking his head. So at 1 p.m. we'll have letters and we'll convene in the afternoon. I'll let the parties know when. Agnifilo says he will be a fool, which he is not, to violate any condition. Judge says court is adjourned. What I need to do is hear from you. You guys, we have been rocking
Both,
together
Rosa.
for 8 weeks, keeping up with this trial. Is this what you thought was going to happen? Leave a comment, and you know how we do.
He not
We'll
guilty
talk about
on racketeering. He guilty on moving them prostitutes. Hold on. I don't know what this is. Let me see it, because they're there, but they got it silent. Let me see if Tisa's still alive. No. What's happening? Why is everything silenced? Let's see what's CNN.
For Kim Porter, who has passed away tragically several years ago, whose name came up throughout the trial and was referenced and made everyone.
Hold on.
Chant innocent. That was not the same that happened with Maureen Comey, albeit a strong prosecution team who I have to say was very skilled, was very compelling in their delivering. But as they say, them's the breaks. The jury gets to decide how they evaluate it, and it's not about whether they like you, whether you actually have the evidence. What do you have?
We have another update from our Kara Scannell in the courtroom. Combs with his family. He faced his family. Kara says that his face was beaming. He said, thank you. love you, Mom. I love you. I love you. I love you. His family and friends erupted into applause. This is what our Kara Scannell is observing right now. Some family members wiped tears away from their eyes after Combs left the family section, started chanting "Dream Team" to the lawyers, who slapped each other on the back and embraced Tenny Garagos, who did that opening statement. She hugged Combs' family members and she had tears rolling down her cheeks. So look, even though Sean Combs, he has
It went
been
from
convicted
split.
of 2 counts of transportation.
Yesterday they went home, watched the news. The people told them that they found out that they was
essentially life or death. It was either his life was going to be sent to prison, or
have to stay another day if they don't come to an agreement. And they said, forget that.
he could just serve 2. So Combs knows that he has evaded the most serious charges. His children know that their father will be home, at least at some point. He won't be spending the rest of his life in prison. This is really, even with 2 convictions, this is a victory, I have to say, for the defense.
You know why I think they're also probably crying through the defense team? Save for the fact that there's a huge human element of this, of course, because we cannot forget the human element of this. Yes, we have heard about the monstrous allegations against Sean Diddy Combs. You may have personal viewpoints about him or who you think he is. The jury had to have a particular focus on the evidence in the courtroom. But what is astonishing here, remember the gamble that they took. They didn't call a single witness. They didn't call a single witness, including Sean Diddy Combs. They thought about the strategy. It was a huge risk. A defendant has every right not to take the stand. And in fact, the jury is instructed that they cannot hold it against you because it's your right not to take the stand. Remember, the government's got to prove you're guilty. I don't have to prove I'm innocent. And that was the position of Sean Diddy Combs and his team, but not calling a single witness at all. People sort of gasped and thought, are you confident? Are you cunning? Is it a good strategy or was it silly? Well, guess what, everyone? It just paid off. There were moments during that trial where you did hear from Sean Diddy Combs. How? Voice notes.
Yeah, please double tap the screen.
Technology. You heard
double tap the screen or hit the like button.
Familiar voice for many people because they've known him over the last decades, counting in music. You've heard his voice, but you were only able to hear his actual voice in this courtroom, not because he testified, but because of voice notes that he was leaving for the reported victims in this case. And speaking of the victims, I'm wondering what Cassie Ventura is feeling today. I'm wondering what the pseudonym victim Jane is feeling today. The alias named Mia is feeling today because they took the stand. They, by all accounts, and we were there, they were emotional, they were raw. They gave testimony that I think they wanted to take to their graves. That was a phrase that even Mia talked about. And they were on that stand for days. Cassie, she gave birth to her 3rd child a few days after testifying. Her husband was there. In fact, you were sitting near her husband through the testimony. Tell me what you're thinking right now about them.
Here's what I want to say about Cassie Ventura. This trial would not have happened without Cassie Ventura. Sean Combs would not be convicted on 2 counts of prostitution.
He's the convicted felon.
The government's investigation began after Cassie Ventura filed her bombshell lawsuit back in November of 2023, where she came forth with civil allegations that she said that she had been abused, been in a cycle of abuse over the course of a decade. Again, that lawsuit is what sparked this criminal investigation. This trial would not be happening without it. We all saw with our own 2 eyes that Cassie Ventura was horrifically beaten by her boyfriend at the time, by Sean Combs, in that hotel surveillance footage that our team first broke from 2016. So there's two.
I don't want you to miss this because
yes, go ahead.
I want you to understand, Elizabeth Wagmeister has been on this story from the beginning. She has been so critical in all the coverage and making sure that the public had all the information that they needed to be able to follow this story and how. And I don't want you to miss this because the attorney for Cassie Ventura has issued a statement. And I want you to read it.
All right, Laura, let's read this. So Doug Wigdor, who is Cassie Ventura's attorney, said, quote, "This entire criminal process started when our client Cassie Ventura had the courage to file her civil complaint in November of 2023. Although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty.
of transportation to engage in prostitution. By coming forward with her experience, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. We must repeat with no reservation that we believe and support our client, who showed exemplary courage throughout this trial. She displayed unquestionable strength and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion. This case proves that change is long overdue, and we will continue to fight on behalf of survivors. Now, there's one point that I want to make in reacting to this. There's two things to consider here. There is the criminal case, and then there is the mountain of civil cases against Combs. Yes, Combs has been absolved of the most serious charges here, as we have said over the past few moments. This is a good day, the best day maybe that Sean Combs could have anticipated, other than a full acquittal. And yet, let's not forget that he has been accused, he has denied all these accusations, he has been accused of around 70 civil suits from 70 separate accusers who have claimed that they were drugged by Combs, that they were sexually assaulted by Combs. In fact, the most recent suit coming yesterday with horrific allegations. So now it remains to be seen. What will he be sentenced to? Will these civil accusers be scared that he may be out of prison shortly and that they will want to pull back their suits? Or will they continue with those suits?
Don't pull back nothing.
Before this trial, I spoke to a plaintiff's attorney who told me that he had 400 additional claims that he was exploring that he believed were credible. So for Sean Combs, the court of public opinion is very different than the court of law. Diddy will never be the same. Could he have a comeback? Absolutely. This is Hollywood. Okay, this is America. But Diddy will never be the same. He cannot be seen next to women in Hollywood after they saw that video of Cassie Ventura with domestic violence, with not just allegations, but proof. This is going to be a very different reality for Sean Combs, even though he is not spending the rest of his life in prison. An important point, and I should mention, remember, in a civil
He gonna do it again, just like R. Kelly.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. It's by the preponderance of evidence. A fancy way of saying more likely than not. And for many cases of people who've experienced what it's like to go through a criminal trial and then followed up with a civil trial, sometimes they decide to settle cases for the sheer purpose of avoiding having to do anything different. Also, I want to talk for a second about the importance of asset forfeiture. I know it's not the sexiest conversation that's happening when you're describing what this is like, but I want to just be clear on how all of this goes down. Okay, so if Sean had been convicted of all the charges, in fact, he does have 2 charges, there is still the real possibility where his money can still be at risk there. For example, you could go and learn more about asset forfeiture. I did a post on this on TikTok as well, and thinking about what this looks like. And here's the important part about asset forfeiture. The government can take money if they believe that the nature of the offense gave you some kind of a windfall of money. If that's the case, they can take the windfall because they don't want you to reap a benefit from the crimes that you have allegedly committed. They can take it from you. That's not going to happen in the cases of the RICO charge because, of course, that no longer is happening. It's going to instead be something different. But I want to reset for everyone the significance of, as I'm watching, you are watching behind me. Right now, you are seeing this revolving door. Why is everyone looking at this? And why is more security coming outside? For the same reason the judge told the courtroom, the overflow room, essentially, keep it up, keep it down, don't act up, don't react to anything that happens in this verdict. They also were told that same be stoic admonition at the very beginning of the trial, and they were told that they were not to make any kind of reaction. In fact, when you're in the courtroom, when somebody would make a reaction to something or even gasp in any way to what was being said, guess what happened? The marshals would promptly escort you out and say, not here, not in the federal courthouse. Well, right behind me, and you're looking right now, we're waiting to see the family come outside. We're waiting to see anyone else outside. But here's why you likely won't see Sean Diddy Combs coming outside, at least right now, because the judge has told them that the parties, although the defense is requesting he go home right now, the judge said, no, you have to give me some letters by 1 p.m. today describing why you think he should be able to leave or not, and then I'll make a decision. So here we are. It's almost 11 a.m., and we know right now that 2 hours from now, the prosecution and the defense, they are going to submit letters, and then the judge will decide. Are you telling me that Sean Diddy Combs could possibly walk out of the front door of this courthouse? You know who I want to bring in right now to this conversation? Somebody who has been the eyes and ears every single day in this trial. I'm talking about our great Kara Scannell, who has literally brought us everything we needed. Okay, Kara, you know I'm going to ask you. Describe the moment for us that verdict is read. In fact, go a little bit back. Describe what was happening when they knew the verdict was coming.
So the only lawyer in the entire courtroom was Combs' lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, and we saw the courtroom deputy appear with an envelope in his hand. So I walked over to Mark. He said it was a note. This is the family leaving. This is the van that the kids use to come and go to court.
I'm seeing his mother get on the van right now. His sons are getting on the van. Miss Janice is on the van right now. His sons, his daughters, recognized by the long braids that they've had through the court proceeding as well. They're coming out. Of course, his son right there, Justin, and also Christian releasing an album with Kanye last week. On one track was, I think it was called Free Puff. You see what's happening. This is monumental. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, no, I mean, his kids were beaming in the courtroom. And just to go back to that moment, we know that now there is a verdict. And unlike any other time, we have Combs' legal team goes into the side room. They didn't bring Combs right out. So they went into the side room. And that is what was our first signal that there was a verdict, that this was different, that things had changed. So they were in, there's his mother walking out and his mother walking out there.
One of his daughters.
And his sons and the daughters behind him. Yes. So when they come back into the courtroom after a delay, it is very serious. His kids are filing in, his mother's there, his sister is there, and his mom and sister have been there for the majority of this trial, which has been for several weeks. Once the judge gets on the bench and says that they have a verdict, it is silent. Everybody is waiting for the judge. Combs is just sitting there, sitting down with his head down. He's got his glasses on. It looks like he's reading something, but he is not reacting in this moment. His lawyers' faces are drawn. They actually are frowned. They're very nervous, his legal team. And then the jury comes out. No jurors look at Combs. They all file into their seats.
Wait, tell me about that. These jurors had come in. They came in yesterday, and they actually shared straight ahead, I understand, when they had that Kong part. Now they didn't look at him either?
They didn't look at him at all. So it felt a little ominous, because that is the thing that people always look for. Does the jury reveal anything as they're heading to their seats? They walk to their seats. The judge has them, tells them he's going to have the four-person read. So the four-person stands up, says that they have a verdict.
Oh, so his sentencing will be on. Oh, hold on. We need to hear that. Hold on.
Then he hands it back to the judge.
Hold on.
The judge can review it.
So his sentencing will be based on the preponderance of evidence. Hold on, let me bring that over.
Racketeering, which is also called the racketeering conspiracy charge. That was the most serious. He was looking at many
so his sentencing will be based on the preponderance of evidence.
They also found him not guilty on 2 counts of sex trafficking, but they did find him guilty on 2 counts of transportation for prostitution. Each one of the charges, which has been mentioned, carries a maximum of 10 years. And sometimes when there's double counts on the same charge, they'll allow somebody to serve them concurrently. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves with that, because right now what his defense team is focused on is trying to convince this judge to make sure that they can get him bail and get him out of there.
Fraud or coercion, he was found not guilty as well. So again, as we head back to this live look right now, we will head back to our Fox 5 New York coverage momentarily here. But there are still a lot of questions here. And I think one of them is also being what led to the jury deciding on those 2 counts that Combs is guilty of, but not those other 3. And I really
any ability to just do what he wants to here.
So the maximum is not necessarily the guidelines. There will also be sentencing guidelines associated with these counts, which will be calculated by the judge and calculated by each of the parties. The judge has full discretion here. He could go down, I would expect a sentence in a couple of year range at this point based on the evidence that's been presented. Can't make any guarantee, but that's the sentence that I would expect at this point.
What about his time served, though? Wouldn't that impact his ultimate sentence?
Of course, he will get credit for all of the time that he's been in since the fall of last year. And that will absolutely impact the sentence that he'll receive when he ultimately does receive that sentence. The Bureau of Prisons calculates how much time he served when the sentence is then pronounced in determining when he will be released.
No prior record either, correct? That weighs into this.
Correct. Combs has no record, and that should
Now
weigh
he
heavily
does,
into
though.
what sentence he should receive. Prior defendants who have no record, who are convicted of similar Mann Act violations, receive a sentence much less than the 10-year maximum.
Okay.
What that will be is up to the judge, and we won't know that for many months. Today, the battle, though, is whether or not Combs will be released from the MDC and whether he'll walk out of the courthouse with his family this afternoon or whether he'll be going back to the MDC.
Let's go back to the charges, because I feel like this is a massive blow for the
What
7th
about
District
this-
of New York, who they have incredible power to really convict people a lot of times, and this time they did not. They failed on these two very important
Girlfriends into hundreds of drug-fueled sex marathons with other men. His lawyer said the women were willing participants. So consent, as we heard in the Fox 5 New York coverage, there, also a big key part of this trial that we will ask our legal analyst here in just a short amount of time. Now, if you are just joining us on live now from Fox, I was explaining a moment ago that we do have this QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can scan that, head to the Ask Now page, write in some questions. We're going to be bringing on our legal analyst here in just a short amount of time. Again, what questions do you have about the Diddy verdict? We'll answer those shortly. In the meantime, let's head back to our Fox 5 New York team for more coverage.
He's been acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering. However, he has still been convicted of 2 prostitution offenses.
And joining us right now, criminal defense attorney Randy Zellen, joining us by Zoom. Randy, thank you so much for being with us. Our first question, were you surprised at any of the decisions made in this case? Share your opinions with us.
Not at all. No, I don't have a crystal ball. No, I'm not a soothsayer. But quite frankly, I have been saying from the get-go that, in my opinion, this case was going to end up exactly as it did, with convictions on the bringing prostitutes across state lines and acquittals on the sex trafficking and the RICO.
Well, we're
Okay,
talking about
Leo.
the sentencing right now. What's the sentencing range for the 2 counts that he's been convicted on? Essentially, when you're looking at the time served, which is 9 months, could he walk free on this?
No, I think you've got a couple of interesting dynamics when you're talking about federal criminal sentencing. One, you have the statute. We know that the statutory maximum for the counts of conviction are 10 years each, but throw those away. Everything lives and dies with what we call the federal sentencing guidelines. It's a series of mathematical computations. Your life as a defendant is reduced to an accounting. Every crime carries with it points. What you do in furtherance of the crime carries with it points. You add, you subtract, you go to a chart. There is a vertical axis, which are the number of points, a horizontal axis, which is your criminal history, and you land on a range in months. And from there, we get to a sentencing. So I think the good news for Mr. Combs is that he was acquitted of the more serious crimes, convicted of the less serious crimes, still carries statutory maximums. And when you do the guideline calculations, and here's the part that really will trip everybody up, the judge is allowed to consider the acquitted conduct in a federal criminal case so long as he finds that the proof was by a preponderance. So don't be surprised if Mr. Combs ends up with a sentence that looks a lot closer to double digits than it does to single digits, given what the judge saw in this trial.
Randy, how do you view?
And that is our Fox 5 New York coverage there. We'll continue to listen in there and head back to that in just a few moments. But for right now, I do want to bring in our legal analyst, Nima Rahmani. He has joined the show throughout this entire trial. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Live Now from Fox. And as I've been sharing here, we do have a lot of viewer questions coming in. So what I did want to do right now is share one of those here and have you answer in real time. So we do have this question. This is saying, is it possible for him to be released today on time served and just probation? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So yes, and not quite. He should absolutely be released today on bail. He deserves bail. He's not a risk of flight. He's not a danger to the community. He's beaten the most serious charges. I expect Judge Subramanian to do that. But he can't be sentenced today because U.S. probation needs to prepare a pre-sentence report, and that can take months. But he'll be a free man while that process plays out. I was doing some back-of-the-napkin calculations. I think he's probably looking at a range of somewhere maybe between 15 to 21 months. Certainly nowhere near the 10-year maximum that people have been talking about, especially prosecutors. So I expect Combs to get time served or something close to it. That's what he deserved and what will go down as the most expensive prostitution trial in American history.
I do want to go off of what you just said, because our next viewer question here, you did just briefly answer, but I think we just a little more clarity here, because here's what one of our viewers wrote in. What would be the longest prison sentence? Could each count be consecutive? And what's the difference? And again, we've been touching on that here throughout the show ever since we did learn the verdict. Can you just break this down a little bit further for our viewers?
The longest potential sentence is 20 years, 10 years on each count. The judge could run them consecutively, but everyone talks about the maximum sentence in federal cases. That doesn't matter. What matters is the advisory sentence. So there's the federal sentencing guidelines, and I'm not going to bore you with the math, but just know that back in the day, they used to be mandatory, which meant that judges would have to calculate the range of sentences and they had to stick within that guideline. Now, there's a Supreme Court case about 20 years ago where they said, you know what, the guidelines aren't mandatory, but they're advisory. But still, a lot of judges stick within those guidelines. That's why I've been talking about that 15 to 21 months. That's probably where Combs is going to end up in terms of his guidelines. So when people are talking about 10 years and 10 years and the prosecution said they're going to go for the full 20, you can just forget about it. The prosecutors in the prestigious Southern District of New York need to take this loss, move on. The jurors did not believe the victims. The jurors did not think that Combs was running a criminal enterprise. Prostitution is not a serious charge. And look, let's be real. Christy, if Combs is guilty of prostitution, so is Cassie Ventura and victim Jane. They were contacting the sex workers and paying them as well. I'm not suggesting that Cassie or Jane should be prosecuted, but let's apply some logic and reasoning. I'm as pro-prosecution as they come. I believed in this case, but the jury has spoken. Combs should be free, and he should get time served or close to it.
Going off of that as well here, this other question we're getting in that I was also going to ask you, can Diddy appeal the 2 counts of these charges?
He can, but he doesn't have much of a legal leg to stand on. Let's talk about the defense's argument for prostitution. They said that Combs thought he was hiring porn stars and making homemade pornos. Well, if that was true, why are you paying them cash and asking the escorts if they're a cop? So not a good argument. I think Combs is ecstatic that he's guilty of prostitution. I think that was a gimme and something that was really thrown in by the government. I think had we known ex ante before this that Combs would just be found guilty of prostitution, no prosecutor in this country would have taken the case. And I don't think Combs is going to waste his time on an appeal when he's likely just going to get really little to no additional time.
We'll head back to some more viewer questions in a second, but I just wanted to talk to you more about the key legal distinctions that led to the convictions on the 2 counts of transportation for prostitution, but the acquittals of the sex trafficking charges. I want to get into the mind of the jury with all of this, because we know that they were having a difficult decision just the other day, and I feel like now this all came out pretty quickly here this morning.
No question. And look, I was on Live Now yesterday and I predicted it. So hopefully we have that tape and we can roll it. So it started, let's just get into the mind of the jurors. We started with day 1, juror 25, saying that he won't deliberate. Well, that led me to believe that he was a defense juror. You know, someone that says, I think he's guilty across the board, isn't going to elicit that type of juror reaction on the first hour and the first day of deliberation. So we had at least one sign that we had one very pro-defense juror, right? Then when the jury returned a very quick verdict yesterday, now obviously we didn't get the verdict yesterday, but they sent a note saying that they were all in agreement on 4 of the 5 counts. I always thought prostitution wasn't a bad. I thought that there's no way any jury in the world would not find him guilty of prostitution. But I knew the sex charges were weak, and I knew a quick verdict is a defense verdict on those serious charges because there was so much evidence of consent, Christy. Cassie had emails and text messages saying that she loved to get freaky and couldn't wait to do another freak off. Mia never reported the sexual assault to law enforcement. Even during her first meetings with prosecutors, she didn't talk about it. There's social media posts where she says she loves Diddy. This is her brother. And Jane, even though she had some messages saying she didn't want to participate in the hotel nights, she had a transactional relationship. She was an OnlyFans model. She was asking Diddy for money. He's still paying her rent and her legal fees right now. She's getting bags. She's getting jewelry. I think jurors thought, look, here's someone who knew what she was getting herself into. So the victims were discredited and impeached by the defense's cross-examination. So the only possibility for a government win in this case, and I've been saying it all along, was racketeering. If they could somehow find some path through non-sexual activity, I'm talking about bribery, right? The $100,000 paid for the video, the extortion of Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom, the arson of Kid Cudi's car, something that wasn't sex-related. Potentially prosecutors could get to racketeering, but ultimately we know that there were some jurors that were on the fence. They came around this morning and it was a not guilty more or less across the board.
Nima, our next question, based off of what I was actually going to ask you next, let me pull it up. Another viewer question, what do you think ultimately influenced this verdict? We know that Diddy did not testify himself, and I was wondering if you thought maybe that would have changed the outcome of all of this, but I guess combining those two questions here, was there anything that you really think really influenced the verdict for the jury here?
The victims were just bad witnesses and they were impeached with their own words. There's a reason that the defense kept playing videos of the freak-offs. I believe that it showed the female victims seemingly enjoying themselves sexually, right? It didn't show the force or coercion. When you have the defense playing the tape and when you have the defense showing the text messages and social media posts and emails where the victims seem like they're willing participants in all this, that is a strong defense case. This is a case that was based entirely upon cross-examining, impeaching, and discrediting the victims. Now, I think the prosecution made a number of fatal errors in this case, and I'm going to tell you what they were. They didn't call Christina Horam Diddy's chief of staff, right-hand woman. They didn't call D-Rock his security. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I used to prosecute drug cartels. And I could tell you that I always leaned on lower members of the organization to flip on and to testify against the head of the organization. They failed to do so. The government named victims in the indictment. Hey, William. Hey, anybody who came in, walked away. She went MIA. She went sideways. So they didn't have control over their victims. They filed to bring in these prior bad acts witnesses. They didn't call any of them. If I was the government, what I would have done is this. I would have brought on maybe a minor victim because, of course, minors can't consent to sexual activity. I would have brought victims that were one-offs, that didn't have a romantic or personal or long relationship with Diddy because they wouldn't have these emails and text messages. I'm not saying that would have changed the result. Why didn't they subpoena KK? There would have been a chance to get some convictions here. Really poor presentation by the government in this case, which I've been critical throughout.
And we're going to bring in one more question here because I know we got to let you go. From the 2 counts he was found guilty of, which one have been a harsher sentence of the 2? But we do know those 2 counts here were essentially the same thing. Can you break that down for us? I think some people are a little bit confused on the 2 that he was found guilty for. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's essentially prostitution for Cassie and prostitution for Jane. Same thing with the sex trafficking was prostitution. Sex trafficking of Cassie, sex trafficking of Jane. So neither is harsher than the other. Again, there's the possibility the judge runs them consecutively or back to back. I think the right thing to do would be to merge them, run them concurrently at the same time. Again, it's just prostitution. I'm not saying that prostitution should be legal or shouldn't be a crime, but to make a federal case out of prostitution and to do it for the span of 2 months does not make sense. And I think Combs deservedly should get time served and should be a free man.
Nima, one of my last questions for you here is, what does the future of Sean Diddy Combs' career look like We've seen in the past celebrity trials when we saw Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, we've seen these other celebrity trials unfold here. In terms of the future of his career, what is that looking like, and how has all of this compared to those other trials we have seen in the past?
I don't think it's good because people can't unsee that 2016 video of him beating Cassie. I mean, let's be real. And the defense admitted it. Combs is a violent, abusive person, and I think that is going to tarnish his reputation. Now that he's going to be a free man and he deserves to be free, and they did a good job walking a line between the physical violence and the sexual activity. And I think there's certain people that do believe that he is a sex trafficker and someone that should be spending significant time in federal prison.
And
I think his reputation has taken a huge hit. I think financially he was reportedly worth upwards of $1 billion. He's probably worth hundreds of millions of dollars now. He spent a lot of money on legal fees, and he of course has to face those civil lawsuits. But I also have to answer the question with respect to Cassie and Mia and Jane and victims of sexual assault and abuse everywhere. I mean, Christy, imagine going to court testifying that you had to take drugs to the point of throwing up, that you were urinated on, including in your mouth. You had to have sex when you're menstruating and you had a UTI, and the jurors didn't believe you. I think this is going to be a significant setback and have a chilling effect.
And they ask why people don't say nothing sooner.
Because they're going to have to relive their trauma in a very public way. And guess what? People might not believe them. So I think that's the bigger takeaway here.
Yeah, and that was a question that we had for you
of y'all said
the jury of all of this look like. Did this set a precedent here? Nima, I know I got to let you go. Is there anything else you wanted to add that you think we missed here?
I think we covered everything, Christy. Thanks for having me as always.
We covered a lot. Hey, thank you for joining. You always do a great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we are taking a live look there once again outside of the courthouse as we do continue our coverage here. Let's head back to our Fox 5 New York team.
And, figure out what we want to do about that. Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lead attorney, said, we need bail. He should be released immediately. And then, and then we're still waiting to see what's going to happen. So the other thing is they have a ton of information already in their files, the prosecutors do, about Diddy and about his ability to handle a bail situation or a situation when he's out there. He proposed a $50 million bail. Imagine that, $50 million for bail in order to get out while this trial was, before the trial actually started, while he was incarcerated. So they denied that. They denied the bail request a couple of times, and several times actually. And so we'll see what's happening. But that's the next development in this. Is like most of the family has left the court. The jurors were taken out on a side entrance, a little known side entrance. They were not brought through the front of the courthouse, which a lot of people were hoping would happen, so they could get a chance to get a few words with them. But that wasn't the case. They were brought out on a private, a semi-private, or secret type entrance, and then they were brought out like that. And then it's just a waiting game right now, guys. In terms of the bail, let me bring in Attorney Peter Frankel right now. We'll just get a sense of what you have to do to get bail. Peter, in terms of the bail, what do they have to do for bail?
Well, the first thing that we need to understand is that this case is completely different than it was when he was first arrested. In essence, the jury rejected the government's case and found that their main witnesses, Cassie Ventura and Jane, were not credible through their testimony. So defense counsel is no doubt going to explain to the court that this case, as the court knows, is completely different, and this is not a situation where a significant bond even needs to be set at this point. The charges for which he was convicted of don't even carry mandatory.
That's not even what they said, person. That's not what they said.
Zero or time served,
and I'm sure that the defense team is going to argue for no jail time for him. So the first step is to recognize this case has completely changed from what it once was.
And then in terms of the, you
they got away with it with Weinstein too.
And the fact of the matter is,
they got away with it.
That means it could be, like you said, he could get
hell, they was finna get away with it with Epstein.
And could that time be applied to any
they tried
potential
them
sentence
separately.
down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. Any time that he's already served will be credited to any time that he may get for a sentence. I'm quite certain, however, the government's position on sentencing and the defense's position on sentencing are going to be completely at odds with one another. And it's going to be really interesting to see
federal
how
prison
the court
system.
handles sentencing in this
down.
case, because most of the government's case was rejected.
All right, and then for people that are just joining us, it was being considered a victory for the defense. Not guilty on the RICO charge, a racketeering conspiracy #1 charge. Not guilty on the 2 counts of sex trafficking, and guilty only on this prostitution charge.
Correct. It was a complete repudiation of the government's case, and where he was once looking at a potential life sentence, he's no longer looking at a definite jail sentence. So now the work really begins for the defense team to try to make sure that if he does get out today or whenever it may be, that he doesn't go back in.
And then in terms of filing any kind of an appeal to this conviction, what's the timeline typically for a case like this of when that would happen?
So typically sentencing wouldn't occur in federal court for 8 weeks or
He should
longer.
not have been trying to make people have sex with
Possible
prostitutes.
the defense will file motions in advance of sentencing,
He's sick.
trying to have that.
And anybody who think what he did is okay is sick too.
A regular appeal to the Second Circuit would not occur until after he were.
That's my opinion.
Oh, so
if you're okay with what he did,
yes,
forcing people to have sex with male or female hookers, you are sick.
And then what about the reputation for the Southern District? It's always been kind of the most vaunted,
Anybody
and most
who co-signed in this.
well respected. What does this do to their reputation?
Well, it's a great question, Lisa, because we know criminal prosecutions in this district result in convictions some 95% of the time.
Right, and people know that, and that's why they said, "Oh, it's a federal case. He's done," and he's not done, not by long shot.
No, exactly right. So, I think the Southern District is going to take a long, hard look at the case that they brought and whether or not they want to bring similar prosecutions going forward, especially as it relates to the RICO charge, which everyone knew was going to be extremely difficult.
What are you talking about, Sudy 54? So we just heard about 6 lives.
For him to get out,
there's 6 lives.
He could get out this afternoon because we've seen kind of
no, it wasn't just about 6 lives.
Them shutting down the block, but they brought in a lot of NYPD officers here to handle the crowds and stuff
Were
like
you
that.
paying attention?
Giving us a
What do
sense
you
that
mean?
okay, this is a lot more than we've seen at any other point in the trial. Do you think that's possible? Just yes or no that he could get out today?
A definite yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right, Peter Frankel, criminal defense attorney. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. And guys, that's the latest here from outside the federal.
Why? Because it's Diddy? He wasn't the first. He's not special. Y'all kill me thinking he's special. Get out of Diddy's ass. Y'all into that kinky shit he into, men, butts and shit. Get out of his ass. He is not special.
Lisa, before you go, maybe
he was not the first. They done been in people's strange sexual behavior before when it breaks the law. He is not exempt.
Oh, Lisa, you're back. You hear us, right?
Damn, how much did he pay you, Preston? You eating booty and shit now?
Describe Combs' demeanor. You were in the courtroom. Just walk
You're
us
an ass
through his
eater.
reaction.
God dang. I thought highly of you. I'm looking at you different now. You all up in his ass.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Somebody's coming out of the. Okay, so it's just this huge crowd.
Everybody, man who think it's okay, let him have your daughter, your wife for a damn month and see how they go. See how you fit in. I bet you'll want him to be a one-man RICO then. I bet you.
There's an actual, it's called an elocution,
hypocritical
where the
thinking.
defendant has to actually
Nah, because my kid ain't no fool, but it ain't about if they're a fool.
Combs was asked that. The judge
if you
said,
think it's okay, whether they're a fool or not, let him go stay at Star Island. Let them go stay at Star Island with Diddy for a damn month and see how you feel.
Judge that way, but that was just his personality and his demeanor. But of course, since the deliberation started, his demeanor has been very subdued. He's been much more quiet. And again, you have to understand why all this is going on during the day. All of these deliberations were happening, and even during the test, especially during this week, he's in a holding cell. They take him out of the courtroom. He's in the holding cell while the court goes on, and basically he had a couple of books with him.
And for everybody who say why they didn't say nothing, why they didn't call, this is why, because people don't believe you.
But there were different times where he prayed. He was allowed to pray privately with his mother.
That ain't normal.
The other day, just have a couple of words with her. There was a private prayer with the kids yesterday.
They don't let you do that.
His demeanor, it really depends on what the circumstances are, but it's clear that this was a huge weight on him. This is a guy that basically made his name for himself with his tremendous showmanship and also with his ability to engage.
Let any one of y'all asses get in trouble with the federal government and see if they let you pray with your family. See if they let y'all do that.
The crowd, and there were a couple times during the trial when he tried to engage the jury, and the judge admonished him and told him that if it happened again, he wouldn't hesitate to remove him from the
and he didn't remove him
from the courtroom. But I'm sure there's a tremendous sense of relief. I'm sure last night was an unbearable night for everybody involved with this case, both the prosecution and the defense, and it just we're waiting now to see if they're going to expedite or at least follow through on getting this bail done, which I think is probably from what our experts, what Peter Frankel was just telling us, and some of the other experts were saying that they would, that they expect to happen today, guys. But that's the latest from here. We're going to keep a watch on that door, and we'll be back with you.
Yeah, Lisa, you mentioned that charisma, especially through the judge starting off with. That's the charisma that allowed him to have these relationships with women that turned out pretty badly, as we saw by some of these evidence. You mentioned the big crowd behind you there. What is the sentiment from that crowd there? Are those people in support of Diddy, or are these women's groups that are very upset about what?
Well, it was interesting, though, because I would have expected the women's groups, honestly, to show up a little bit earlier in the trial, like while the testimony was going on, or to come out to support. There were a couple of individual women, maybe 2 or 3 at a time at certain points when Cassie was on the stand. But most of the people that were out here, and it has thinned out a little bit, were here to support Diddy, or they were just curious to see what, to see what was going on. There's a large contingent also of podcasters and people who are doing their own, doing their own thing to get the word out like that. So it's kind of a mixed bag right here, and everybody just waiting now. You got a lot of professional media from all over the world here to cover this story, because he is one of the most famous men in the world, and this has been covered heavily everywhere. Guys, back to you.
All right, Lisa, thank you so much for that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back as we continue covering the verdict coming down on this very, very influential case.
We'll be right back.
Do you have any? Thank you to our Fox 5 New York team. And again, you are taking a live look right now outside of the courthouse. You could hear Lisa Evers, our Fox 5 New York reporter. She paused there at the beginning of her live shot because she was checking to see if anyone was coming outside of the courthouse. Now, as you can imagine, this is a very fluid situation here. The media all still outside because we're hoping to get some more comments here. We did hear again from Cassie Ventura's attorney just a little bit earlier today. No one else has stepped up there to that podium as you are taking another live look outside of the courthouse. These are the two angles that we have here for you. As this is again still
because I know that he's gonna get out there and do it again,
once they are back,
and we're gonna be back here again, and folks still gonna be making excuses for him.
That we have.
He is not special.
We just ran through this with our legal analyst, what a lot of this means here. But these are the charges on your screen there. And the big one is Sean Diddy Combs was found not guilty of that RICO charge. That was the one that could have put him behind bars for life. But he was found guilty on counts 2 is found guilty in counts 3 and 5, those guilty charges for the Mann Act transportation, transportation for purposes of prostitution. And as we've been hearing here, the max sentence is 10 years in prison for that one count. So again, could be facing up to 20 years. We are still awaiting that sentencing. We're also keeping an eye on to see if Diddy himself will come out of the courthouse at some point here today. And again, I want to just go back to this RICO charge because that was the big one here for Combs. That federal RICO violation, it could have resulted in that long sentence. The transportation to engage in prostitution charge could carry that sentence of up to 10 years, while sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion may carry a 20-year sentence. Now, Diddy's jury seemed to believe that his relationships were genuine, as we do know from our Fox News team here. And we are still trying to really get into the mind here of the jury because, as we've been saying, they were having a difficult time with that first count there just the other day. And then this morning, this verdict seemed to come out fairly quickly here. Now, could that happen because there is a holiday weekend coming up? That's potential. That's one of the things we've been hearing from our analysts here, that the jury wanted to get that in quickly. But again, these are the charges here.
Very quickly.
As we do see now, our Fox 5 New York team is back in their coverage. And I do know our Fox 5 New York team is also going to be hosting several legal analysts as well. So I do want to head back over there and listen in.
Heard from Cassie Ventura's attorney. Here's what he had to say.
The reaction is that we're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that he still faces substantial jail time.
All right, and that was Cassie Ventura's lawyer, Douglas Wigdor, weighing in on the decision. But we want to now bring in Randy Zellen. We will be going to Randy Zellen, but first we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, stay with us. We'll be on top of all this.
This is Alex.
All right, again, that is our Fox 5 New York team. They are at the end of their hour, so as you can imagine, they are taking these commercial breaks here. But again, if you are just joining us, as we do continue to discuss here, we are still awaiting hopefully some more comments here outside of the courtroom. Again, we did hear from Cassie Ventura's attorney a short time ago. You just heard from him right there at the end of that clip with our Fox 5 New York team. Hopefully they will be able to play those comments back extensively if you did miss them a little bit this morning, and we are trying to get those comments here on our end as well to play out for you. But one of the big things here again is the Mann Act, and so I just want to familiarize you with it. If you are just tuning in, we've been speaking about it a little bit here on the show. But again, Sean Diddy Combs was found not guilty of major charges, but he was found guilty of a lesser prostitution offense. The guilty charges involve a felony violation of the Federal Mann Act. So here's what we do know about
your proposal that he leave this courtroom and walk outside, and Agnifilo said, yes, it is. Now, he's right. Agnifilo is absolutely correct that he has been acquitted of the most serious charges, but I still want to underscore the fact that Sean Combs, one of the biggest celebrities in the world, one of the most powerful entrepreneurs and men in the world, has now been convicted. He has been found guilty on 2 sex crimes counts. Yes, and remember, it was not trafficking. I want to just unpack for a second even more the significance of this moment. Okay, here's what the prosecution had to prove on the RICO charge. They had to prove that there was a group of people, an enterprise, that were engaged in a number of criminal activity over a 10-year period, and it was a pattern. Some of those things called predicate acts were things like kidnapping or arson or bribery or forced labor, everything like that. Now, part of what happened in the trial, as you know, were various mini trials that were happening because the verdict form was, do you find him guilty or not guilty of RICO? And then they had to explain, had the government proven their case for kidnapping, for arson, for bribery? Now, some of what the jury heard about kidnapping was one of 2 things. and there were instances. One was that a former employee named Capricorn Clark was, she said, given a lie detector test over a 5-day period because there was the thought that she had stolen some form of jewelry, and that she was then taken to this warehouse area and held against her will. Also, they said that Cassie Ventura was kidnapped when she was told and made to go to hotels after violent acts were committed against her by the hands of Diddy, and to which she was not able to return to his home or go to her mother. For arson, it was that Kid Cudi car and that Molotov cocktail into his Porsche. Forced labor, with the number of hours people were spending working for him outside of the so-called normal business hours and the like. And of course, this is the big one, and you know a lot about this. I'm talking about the bribery charge that was based on the CNN or to obtain video of the Intercontinental Hotel assault and abuse of Cassie Ventura. They had testimony, right, from a security guard who got $100 grand in a brown paper bag that was flipped through a machine in a hotel.
Absolutely. And look, those are the predicate crimes. And in addition to believing or proving those predicate crimes, Laura, they have to first believe that there was an agreement to conspire, that there was a conspiracy in place. So it may not be that these jurors didn't believe that Sean Combs bribed a security guard with $100,000. It may not be that they did not believe that Kid Cudi's car was blown up and that the prosecutors proved arson. But if they didn't believe that there was a conspiracy in place at all, that Sean Combs was the head of this criminal enterprise, as prosecutors have alleged ever since he was indicted, well, then the predicate crimes don't matter. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and think about this. I mean, here's the great irony. Do you know the name of Combs's business enterprise? Combs Enterprise. That was not the actual enterprise that these prosecutors wanted them to believe about, but it was Combs Enterprise. Now, behind us, by the way, the crowds are building up right now. You're hearing people either trying to get people out of traffic or having them solicit them to say to free and honk for free Diddy. You have seen a accumulation of people over the past couple of minutes who are coming to this scene based on this. I want to
we're just seeing some his family members walking out
involved in the RICO charge, what was not proven, because this jury did not believe they made their case. And you know what a big thing was? The enterprise. Because as Elizabeth was keenly observing, you've got the idea of the agreement for conspiracy that was alleged, but they had to have an enterprise. That's a group of people who are associated together and committing crimes. They even named people who the prosecution said were alleged co-conspirators. One of them, a woman by the name of Christina Karam, who has said that she has not committed any offense. She has said that she is guilty of nothing and has not been charged with anything. D-Rock, also a security guard. These names came in like oxygen into the courtroom. Neither of them was called, and there was a big to-do from the defense to say, they didn't call these people, why not? Well, that might have factored into the failure to prove an enterprise.
Absolutely. The jury could have been wondering. We keep hearing their names. Why are we not hearing from them? Now, Laura, we have some news in from our team inside. We have a government response to that motion for Sean Combs to not be held. And here is what Prosecutor Maureen Comey said. She said the government opposes the motion. The trial showed evidence of conduct that involved extensive abuse and the prolific use of drugs that the defense did not contest. She said Combs, quote, continued to commit a litany of crimes, end quote, after he knew that he was under investigation. Remember, this brings us back to before this trial began. Combs was denied bail 3 times from 3 different judges. This judge being one of them who denied him bail, agreeing with the government, which said at the time that they believe that Combs is a danger to society, that he had been trying to manipulate and tamper with witnesses from behind bars. So that's what they're referring to here. And to continue with what the prosecutor said inside that courtroom, she said that he does not have respect for the law and would likely commit new crimes if released. She also confirmed that the government intends to seek a sentence of incarceration and that Combs still faces up to 20 years in prison for the 2 counts that he's been convicted on.
Yeah, this is really important. First of all, why 20 years when I just told you that prosecution could have 10? Because they want to run it consecutively, meaning back to back. Now, here's when you can do that. It can be concurrent if the same underlying time period and facts are consistent between both charges. Here, you're talking about acts that are years in between. And so the prosecution is entitled to ask for these charges and sentences to run consecutively. However, according to the guidelines and first-time offenders of this sort of crime, and Sean Diddy Combs does not have a prior felony conviction, that will factor into how the judge views this. And as far as him being able to leave because of prolific drug use, well, the reality in this country and all across the globe is that drug use is in fact prolific. And the idea that the defense has talked about over time of him having an addiction at different points or unable to refrain from using drugs, that might factor into whether the judge looks at this. But ultimately, what this prosecution team is asking for is the very thing that the jury did not find. They did not believe when they were talking about witness tampering. That was one of the predicate crimes that could be under the RICO charge. They may not have bought it. And so the judge, his hands are tied out of respect for the justice system in this country. And like it or not, once there is a jury of peers who makes a decision, whether it's in your favor or against, we as a judicial society have to abide by that to the extent that there are no existing appellate issues. Now, that's a good point. The appeals, just because he's been convicted, that's not the end of the decision for Sean Diddy Combs. And I want you to understand this particular point. Yes, he has been found guilty of those two, transportation to engage in prostitution. However, they have preserved their appellate rights throughout this trial, and they have taken issue with a lot of the evidence that came in, and in particular, RICO. Why? Because they have believed that RICO was an overcharge. And now that was able to come in, which is the right of the prosecution because of discretion, they will argue on appeal that tainted the mindset of the jurors because it was purely pretextual. They will argue, whether they're successful or not, they will argue that the entirety of the RICO charge was meant only to strategize a way to get a conviction, not because they thought they could actually reach their burden of proof. And if an appellate court were to believe that and believe that the entirety of the charges were tainted by that, he might have a shot in the prayer on an appeal. Either way, you were right. 2 convictions for Sean Diddy Combs. These are felony offenses. Behind us again, let's describe this scene because look at it. Behind you, you have
He is a
people
convicted
holding up shirts
felon.
who have consistently been talking about
He's
Sean
a
Diddy
convicted
Combs.
felon.
You know the impact he's had culturally, musically, business-wise. They touted it during the trial. You've seen evidence of that throughout 7 weeks.
And we do have an update right now on that motion from the defense to have him walk out of here today. The judge asked the parties to submit letters on their position by 1 p.m. today, and he said he would make a decision afterward. Combs' defense told the judge that Combs was looking at potentially spending the rest of his life in prison, but he was acquitted of those charges. He said, quote, Mr. Combs has been given his life by this jury. He said that Combs would be, quote, nothing short of a fool if he violated any conditions set by the court if he was released.
He
And
has
here's
to
a
abide
direct
by the
quote
law.
from Combs' defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo. Quote, he treasures, I assure you, the opportunity that he has been given, and he will not run afoul of anything that this court imposes on him. Now, we will not have a decision immediately because the judge has asked them to submit by 1 p.m., and the judge is off the bench. So this has happened very quickly. He said the jury's job is done. The judge is off the bench. Now, I actually want to take us back to day 1 of this trial, to opening statements, because I wonder if this was ringing in the jurors' ears as they were deliberating. The defense's position, their defense of him was he is a bad guy. They said, our client is a bad guy. He has done indefensible things, like beat women. However, this is domestic violence. This is not racketeering. This is not sex trafficking. They said to the jury on day 1, you may not like him. You may not agree with his sex life. They said his sex life is very peculiar, and you're going to hear about it during this trial. But they said that you are not here to judge him. You are here to follow the law. And the defense has
They didn't follow the law.
That they did not believe that the law in these charges.
They didn't follow the law. The guy said that he was not going to follow the law.
So important to have that stated.
He said that right off the bat, and the judge should have removed him.
Question of what people believe he should have been charged with and what they believe he should not have been charged with. And let me be clear, there is a thing called prosecutorial discretion. And they have the right to investigate and pursue the matters that they believe they have the evidence to fully pursue and prove beyond a reasonable doubt. I will say as well, the idea of challenging or questioning why the prosecution made this decision, how the case was investigated, the judge specifically said to the jury they were not to consider that. In fact, in closing arguments, they attempted to do so through the context of selective prosecution as to that Sean Combs, here was the phrase, had been targeted by the prosecution.
He wasn't supposed to do that either.
The prosecution did not object in the moment, but later on they did come out to say this was highly improper, and they gave a curative instruction. Even so, though, the judge said to them they couldn't consider that. I wonder if it was a factor in all of this. We have some color from the courtroom.
Yes, we have a big update right now. Remember how we were just saying this is the best possible outcome for the defense? Combs agrees and the defense agrees. Combs, after being led out by marshals, as he was being led out, he knelt down in front of his chair and bowed his head down as if he was praying. When he stood up, he faced the gallery and he began to clap, prompting the gallery to clap and cheer.
Oh, wow.
Combs' attorneys, they all exchanged hugs and the gallery continued to cheer for him. I mean, what a moment in that courtroom.
You know what, I had to tell you, first of all, you got about, 17 or 20 seats that were reserved every single day for Sean Diddy.
It wasn't one. It wasn't one yesterday. I mean, come on.
His family members. He had his adult children, 6 of them who were there.
They couldn't agree yesterday. They found out that they was going to have to go in on the 3rd, and they came in and found
and made everyone's heart sank when she was.
it was only.
You had people who were.
They could have did a hung jury
as well. You had reporters who were there. I will tell you, in the overflow room, I was sitting at one point. I like to go there and see what the court of public opinion was thinking to get a sense and a pulse of the people. After Mark Agnifilo gave his closing argument, which some criticize as meandering and nonlinear, but folksy nonetheless, they erupted in cheers after his closing argument and began to chant innocent. That was not the same that happened with Maureen Comey, albeit a strong prosecution team who I have to say was very skilled, was very compelling in their delivery. But as they say, them's the breaks. The jury gets to decide how they evaluate it, and it's not about whether they like you, whether you actually have the evidence. What do you have?
We have another update from our Kara Scannell in the courtroom. Combs with his family. He faced his family. Kara says that his face was beaming. He said, "Thank you. Love you, Mom. I love you. I love you. I love you." His family and friends erupted into applause. This is what our Kara Scannell is observing right now. Some family members wiped tears away from their eyes after Combs left the family section, started chanting "Dream Team" to the lawyers, who slapped each other on the back and embraced Tenny Garagos, who did that opening statement.
When they start letting them do all this chanting in court.
Tears rolling down her cheeks. So look, even though Sean Combs, he has been convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, he knows exactly what this moment is. This for him was essentially life or death. It was either his life was going to be spent in prison or it was not. And right now he faces up to 20 years, but as Laura Coates has said, he could just serve 2. So Combs knows that he has evaded the most serious charges. His children know that their father will be home at least at some point.
So when did they start saying all he would have to serve is 2 on a federal charge? Oh my God.
A victory, I have to say, for the defense. You know why I think they're also probably crying through the defense team? Save for the fact that there's a huge human element of this, of course, because we cannot forget the human element of this. Yes, we have heard about the monstrous allegations against Sean Diddy Combs. You may have personal viewpoints about him or who you think he is. The jury had to have a particular focus on the evidence in the courtroom. But what is astonishing here, remember the gamble that they took. They didn't call a single witness. They didn't call a single witness, including Sean Diddy Combs. They thought about the strategy. It was a huge risk. A defendant has every right not to take the stand. And in fact, the jury is instructed that they cannot hold it against you because it's your right not to take the stand. Remember, the government's got to prove you're guilty. I don't have to prove I'm innocent. And that was the position of Sean Diddy Combs and his team, but not calling a single witness at all. People sort of gasped and thought, are you confident? Are you cunning? Is it a good strategy or was it silly? Well, guess what, everyone? It just paid off. There were moments during that trial where you did hear from Sean Diddy Combs. How? Voice notes. The marvel of modern communication technology. You heard Sean Diddy Combs' voice, a familiar voice for many people because they've known him over the last decades, and counting in music. You've heard his voice, but you were only able to hear his actual voice in this forum, not because he testified, but because of voice notes that he was leaving for the purported victims in this case. And speaking of the victims, I am wondering what Cassie Ventura is feeling today. I'm wondering what the pseudonym victim Jane is feeling today. The alias named Mia is feeling today because they took the stand. They, by all accounts, and we were there, they were emotional, they were raw. They gave testimony that I think they wanted to take to their graves. That was a phrase that even Mia talked about. And they were on that stand for days. Cassie, she gave birth to her third child a few days after testifying.
It's the white girl that filed a $50 million lawsuit because he was choking her up right off the crime floor. Who wants to see him down? Ain't no black woman ran down to no damn courthouse. The only time we running down to the courthouse is to get some damn child support. That's about it. That's about it.
And Kathy, I'm with you. What I was saying is, I'm with you. I am with you. I blame the brother.
If you're with us, is it based on maybe I think maybe he's saying based on what the last caller was saying about holding black men accountable.
Turn your volume up. We can't hear you.
Can't hear me? What I was saying was, I think he was referencing more maybe your last caller who said that black men should be held more accountable. And that last caller isn't incorrect. I think it doesn't matter what your race is. If someone does something to you and you don't call the police and you don't press charges, they're never going to be held accountable. As we have stated, Cassie, who again isn't 100% black, she's a mixed woman, was beaten on. She was supposedly sexually assaulted. All those things. She never filed any charges again. Got the prosecution to file any charges against Diddy on the state level, right? And now the statute of limitations have passed. And so, no, he cannot be held accountable for those charges. And so, I think that the sentiment is because he will never be held accountable on the state level for what he did to Cassie or anybody else, that people are just trying to lump it in to what was received today. And that's just reality. That's just reality. It's being lumped in.
And the fact that Cassie was smart about it because she didn't sue him directly, she sued his company. He had board members that wanted to go away. So she knew that right away to go get the bag. Because when you have a director of board like board members, they have insurances to pay this out.
Oh yeah, we've discussed that at length on Tasha K.
Shout out to Tasha K.
No money withdrawn from Diddy's bank account to pay the settlement she received.
So she knew that.
About $10 million.
She's very smart.
Right. She got a separate $10 million in the hotel.
I think we're having some sound issues from you. Somebody's cell phone ringing or something like that. So go ahead, Maverick. And I need you to turn your volume up too, Jay Carter, because you're really low. Go ahead. Go ahead, Maverick.
She's a very smart 305. She knew what she was doing. She got about 30-40 million out of the deal. So I think that she played her cards right. But here's the thing. Again, I don't think it's just black men. I think just black people in general have to hold each other accountable. This is the problem, because if we're not, guess what? Other groups of people will, and then it's not going to be so fair. So we can't be saying like, oh, yes, after a black man and this and that. Dude was doing all kind of crazy stuff, and that's what we saw on tape. So imagine what happened behind closed doors.
Facts.
Okay, so if we don't start calling this stuff out now,
call it out.
How far can we let this go? And that's
I
all
agree.
I'm saying, because it's not about men, women, this, that. No, it's us as a people starting to hold each other accountable. Because again, whenever we do something, it's magnified 10 times.
Facts.
It doesn't matter.
We're in the Painting raised. Let me jump in here real quick because we got a few people that are leaving super chats, pretty hefty super chats. Thank you so much for the super chats. To, let's say, Queen Carol 7, love you, Tasha. I think they are going to OJ him, hunt him down, and convict him on another crime in the future. Okay?
Oh, he gonna get hit with another crime in the future.
Him civilly the same way that they did OJ, but OJ only paid the Goldsman, I think, around like $100,000. Okay. The last one, but as we add Ray J back to the stream here, Heidi Fly Airline.
Oh, I ain't gonna like this one.
Facts, okay? And so
Ray J.
Yes,
Oh.
but I'm sorry, I just got tired of, hearing black men try to come in and say we want to see them down when it's Carisha has been quiet and supporting Diddy throughout this, even taking a hit to her brand, saying go poppy, but it's the Asian women and the non-black women that have been on Diddy ass the entire time. Ray J, welcome back to the stream. How you doing? Unmute yourself.
Hold on.
All right.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, Ray J.
Thank you, Tasha. Yeah, we up in here. There's a lot of stuff going on right now because as you know, we've been saying a lot of stuff. We've been super accurate on a lot of things, and so now it's starting to unfold.
Give us some background on what you said. Remind the viewers of what you said pertaining to everything that's been going on.
Well, there's been so many things, whether it was on Piers Morgan, whether it was on Tasha K, whether it was on News Nation, whether it was on Fox, whether it was on, whoever picked it up. We've always been vocal about what it was and what it is, right? And a lot of people have always said that, some of the things we've seen Diddy do is unacceptable. And that is a different case from what we're looking at now. So a lot of people think we're celebrating the wrongdoing. That's not what this is. We're celebrating what's right with still a few twists that still shouldn't have went on too. But I guess, you got to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. But at the same time, what he was charged for, in my opinion, like I said from the beginning, was nonsense. Now, if it was a domestic violence case, if it was civil or whatever that was, then it would have been a problem. Everybody knows it would have been a big problem. And nobody condones that who, respects women and who stands for people being right and doing right. In this case, it wasn't that. And so it started to get weird. And then now we all, as a people, got to be like, yo, this shit is not okay. And that's when everybody, whoever had balls, because everybody was still scared. You talk about maybe 5 to 7 people even commented on the Diddy case in its entirety. Why? I don't know. I told everybody from the beginning, I don't like baby oil. I did. But where was all the baby oil hype? Where is that now? Where were the drugs and the baby oil?
Didn't happen.
It wasn't there, right? So you see how narratives get spent into ways where you start thinking that somebody's throwing it from a professional football player aspect, right? Because it's just so perfectly wrong. And so, we celebrated. I've been playing Diddy all morning. My neighbors is mad because I'm loud this morning. But I told them, listen, I'm celebrating almost what was right. Because anything guilty makes me feel like, okay, everybody wins in that kind of state of like, okay, you're guilty, but really not guilty for the major shit. So I guess everybody wins, but Diddy gets to go home with a weird, image now. But is his image tarnished? I don't know, man. I don't know. This when Puff get out, this is like, what does that look like? What does that look like when Diddy gets out?
He gonna do it again.
Slip and slide, baby, on Pop.
Yeah.
Harder and the best in Miami.
Well, think about it like this, though. Go ahead.
Going to the church. He's gonna start a church.
Your video is messing up, Jay Carter. Go out of the link and come back. We'll bring you back in just a second, okay? You gotta probably go out, shut your phone
Please
down,
double tap your screen and hit the like button.
Video quality. Okay.
told me last night. I'm just playing.
I'm done. What were you gonna say, Maverick, to Ray J? Because I got some questions for Ray J in just a second. And so do White. What were you gonna say, Maverick?
It's just a prediction. I'm just saying. He gets out, he's going to the church.
So you think he's going to the church, Ray J? You think he's finna summon up TD Jakes?
Oh,
and
wow.
everybody, people that weren't there for him during his trial.
You said you think he's gonna summon?
He's gonna go and summon the church, rebuild his brand, change his life before the world. Do you feel like he's about to do that?
But Taj, can you summon a church? That's
yeah, you can, and you can buy a yes.
That's correct. I think that I think every time I've been around Diddy, it was a Sunday. He was always playing gospel music, and always like when I was around and like. Maybe early in the day, it was always spiritual music or motivational music going on. You know what I mean? And I think that's what, when people are inspired by other people who's successful in that space, you always go, damn, so there's so many different elements to it. Like you can party, you can wake up, work out, play some spiritual music, get some motivation. You know what I mean? Go get something to eat, have like a good vibe, a good meeting there, close the deal later on the board with a suit on, and then party later on that night. All night till 3. I mean, that's a
you never saw, according to you, because you've done several platforms. You said you've never seen a freak off or participated in a freak off, and I think that was kind of proved a little bit. But then they were saying that other celebrities
kind of proved a little bit, Tasha, for real. Kind of proved a little bit.
Because there were other celebrities on the tapes, but they never named those celebrities. That came out in court because Diddy's defense team was trying to get them to out the celebrities, and the judge was like, "No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the matters at hand." So obviously there were other celebrities. So you're telling me you are a nepotism baby. This is all you know. You were born into this shit. You were born into the celebrity, the LA, the Hollywood.
Here's the thing about Ray J. I've known Ray J for a long time, but I've never heard anything about Ray J. I will say that. I'm from LA too.
But wait, Matt, you like when you say that, because you my brother, right? But when you say you never heard of nothing about Ray J, it's crazy.
Because people are saying that. People are saying that.
No, Ray J, we've seen you on tape. We've seen you on tape.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and I'm not happy about that. And it wasn't really me, Tosh.
It was AI.
That wasn't like, huh?
It was AI.
It was Ray I.
Wait.
Oh, no.
Where's J-Lo? Where's J-Lo?
Something's wrong with somebody's sound.
The judge has to determine whether or not my team, I want Tasha should be released. Look how good Tasha looks in the middle with her camera, she don't got a camera, she got like a FX9 or something. She's shooting on a red today. Can I get my Sony? Like, look, I need to do, listen, Josh, I need to do part 2, because when I come back, I'm gonna have the blazer on, I'm gonna have the news screen behind me.
I don't know if I'm.
Right now,
No, they're making
It is
fun.
very different now. It is very different now because he's not facing those top charges, those violent charges, those charges that could have sent him to prison for the rest of his life. And one of the other big considerations we have when we talk about transportation to engage in prostitution, the charges that he was convicted of, is what will be his sentence. While there are maximums of 10 years in prison on each charge, and although the prosecution has said that he could face up to 20 years if they stack them one after the other, it seems highly unlikely given a number of mitigating factors in this case, but there's also aggravating factors, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But we're going to take your questions as we are live on air and update you about what is happening. But I also have with us a very special series of guests. So we have an all-star panel. We got with us Ben Shue, acclaimed litigator, famously represented Johnny Depp in his high-profile trial against Amber Heard. We also have with us criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney Tyler Bailey. We have with us Sierra Gillespie and Elizabeth Milner out in the field. We'll get to them. But right now we are also joined by Sheree Hayes. Now, for anybody who's been following this case, you will know who Mr. Hayes is.
Thank you, Max.
As the Punisher.
Max to the boogie.
Of this case. Mr. Hayes, who's also, by the way, the author of In Search of Freezer Meat, can talk more about that. Hayes had testified during the course of this trial about his involvement in 8 to 12 sexual encounters that he had with Cassie Ventura Fine and Sean Combs. Testified that Combs watched and gave directions during these events. You played a pivotal role in this case, Mr. Hayes. It's great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Your reaction to the verdict?
I honestly thought the verdict was the correct decision. You know, it maybe not based on following the specifics of the law, because I know the prosecutor said that you only had to find one instance of coercion. But if you're talking about a jury and the understanding that this was relationships, these were his partners, these were, you know, they were exchanged text messages of love and care and over long periods of time.
And that was manipulated. Oh my God, shut up. You thought she was in love with you.
To the sexual activity and the type of lifestyle they lived. It was I thought it was going to be hard for a typical person that was
travel plan. Yeah, they had to. They were employees of the enterprise.
To not see this as a relationship.
They worked for. They were part of the enterprise. They were co-conspirators. Absolutely. The victims were co-conspirators.
Did you see any force, fraud?
No, he thought she was in love with him. Oh my God.
Engaging these sex acts.
Yeah, it's similar to my testimony. I did not, and so what I will even add is
because you had sex on your mind.
And the facts were I only interacted.
Sir, do you realize that you got played too? You went in a stripper and you came out a hooker.
One-on-one situation prior to the activities.
So you went in a stripper and came out a whole prostitute.
And
so
I always found good vibes, good energy. Hey, thanks for coming. It was great. We'll see you again.
Because you got paid $5K.
And I did not even.
I agree with you, Max. And I believe every man who going along with this is predator minded as well.
I did find it difficult to see.
They will take a cookie.
My interaction being anything close to criminal.
I want to tell you what's happening outside the courthouse. CNN is reporting that
you didn't think it was criminal that you became a hooker, a Diddy hooker. Shut up.
There are remnants of oil that could be seen on the courthouse pavement. We were reporting earlier on today that there was a verbal dispute between supporters of Sean Combs, or at least supporters of his case, and those who feel differently. When you're seeing a reaction like
that, absolutely. It went from, oh no, I won't change. We both won't change until an hour in. Okay.
So what I think is there's a benefit of the misinformation. You know, me as a civilian, even
because they hoes and like to be hulled out. Pressure. Now, don't misunderstand me. It's a whole bunch of females out there with that whole mindset that don't mind being
trafficking. You had all of this bribery and
spread around.
And all of this
a whole bunch of them.
This belief that you
I ain't in denial of that.
Terrible acts.
A whole bunch of females okay with being slutty and nasty, but it's still against the law.
Became evident. I think people's expectations and their belief that it was going to be so much more, it actually minimized the victims' experiences. So now where there are still people that are victimized, regardless of the verdict, there's still bad experiences. People almost see it as a celebratory, you know, simple scenario because everybody thought it was going to be so much worse than what it was, including myself.
Do you think,
listening to the banter.
Do you think that your testimony help secure the conviction for transportation to engage in prostitution? Because let's be clear, the two charges that he was convicted of, one was with respect to Cassie, and the other was with respect to Jane. Do you think your testimony helped secure the conviction against Sean Combs?
No, not at all. Not my testimony, because I was clear that my dealings with them was, I'm from New York City at the time, and I only dealt with them in the New York City area. And me being hired in the initial communications was as a male dancer. We always show up on our own. But I did hear in the testimony there was evidence of plane tickets and stuff being purchased on his American Express card for some of the other escorts. So I'm assuming that secured the conviction for those charges.
So as I mentioned to you before we were coming on, we have amazing viewers who submit incredible questions. And I have a bunch of them. A lot of people have questions for you, Mr. Hayes, so let's get right into it. All right, first question. We got a question from Jackie Reed. Did you have any direct dealings with Christina Coram or any other person other than Diddy that helped set up his freak-offs?
Actually, no, and actually I didn't have any direct dealings with Diddy. All of my communications were specifically with Ms. Ventura and Ms. Ventura only. There was no conversation, no communication, no anything with Mr. Combs. And I said this before, the first time I actually even had eye contact, for the first time eye contact, was at leaving the stand after my testimony. I had zero interactions with Mr.
And by the way, I'm just going to let you know, I'm not like tweaking these questions. These are the ones that are coming in, so I'm just going to read them to you. This is from an an account, Smarty Pants. Thank you so much for the super chat question. Do you think Diddy was cheap with you?
Well, listen, if I'm being honest, when I hear some of the other guys getting $5,000, $6,000, obviously that would be the first thing you think. But then I don't know the scenario. I was never there more than 4 hours at a time on the average. And one thing that I will say is I came multiple days in a row. So I don't know what the criteria was to determine what my fee would be, but I was fine with it. I don't have any reservations as if I was not fairly compensated,
We've got a question. Where is this? Okay. Show and Tell Knitting asks, how will the results of this trial affect your interactions with clients like Diddy? Will you do anything differently in the future?
As far as I'm concerned, I would not do anything differently. That was a nuanced situation for me. Obviously, I'm a male dancer. My trade on a regular basis is not sex work to that degree. That was a proposition I indulged in. So I don't really see much changing. This was a very nuanced situation. I don't think anybody predicted these scenarios escalating to what it actually became. So I don't have any full regrets of my interactions, or if I'm being honest, even my decision. It was something I was a part of. It were some of our decisions, and I'm comfortable with the way everything transpired, even the negatives.
Chris Bono asks, how has this experience changed you, if at all?
Well, it put me in a scenario where I have to do damage control, right? We live in a society where you meet a person, everybody Googles you, right? So I know for the rest of my life, I'm associated with this crime and or trial, I should say, this trial and these accusations, and I'm instrumental in it too. So all I'm doing now is I have to have a much conscious effort in how I'm perceived in my interactions with people going
You're a
forward,
prostitute.
I could start out in a lot of situations in a negative opposed to what normal people do.
And I appreciate you coming on and speaking to media outlets about this, because obviously the trial wasn't testified. There was reporting, it wasn't televised, excuse me, but it wasn't, it was reporting about what the testimony was like. People might have misconceptions about what you said, why you testified. So to be able to clear the air is really important, which is why we get a question from Brooklyn Truth. What was your motivation for testifying? So to be clear, did you want to testify? Did you reach out to the government? How did that work exactly?
So I did not want to testify. The government contacted me even way before the charges, just investigators. And I actually believed that my testimony was going to be insignificant. I explained to them I didn't see any violence. I didn't see anything that was out of the ordinary. And then I was aware, I was a resident of New York. We met up in New York, so it didn't really, in my opinion, or my understanding, constitute sex trafficking. So the thing that put me in this situation, and this never happened, I didn't get any issues from the prosecution or the federal government, but if you talk to people who's supposed to be in the know, they scare you about the Southern District. They give you this thing where, look, you want to cooperate, just do whatever you got to do. You don't want to get on their bad side. So I went into the scenario like, look, I'm just going to cooperate to the best of my ability because I don't want to create a scenario where I'm looked at as an issue and then it escalates to something. It probably wouldn't have, but I just kept getting negative feedback that the Southern District is people you don't want to mess around with. And if they want to talk to you, if they want facts, if they want information, you have to give it to them. And that escalated to me on the stand, where I never second guessed even, cooperating, because I did have worry that resistance could have been an issue for me.
He a hoe.
That may be the most
He
important
know he a
question
hoe.
of the day from Xenu Golf Club.
How do you
like the
know?
courtroom sketches?
Diddy told you so. You a hoe. You know
So
you
I'm
a
still
hoe.
getting problems from my buddies about how terrible those sketches are. So I did not like the courtroom sketches, man.
Well, Combs didn't like him either. He thought he looked like a koala. So.
Yeah. They have me. They calling me like I don't know if you're familiar with the Fantastic Four, but I'm Ben Grimm. So yeah, a lot of jokes, a lot of unnecessary jokes I'm subjected to.
You started out a stripper and now you are a male hooker.
Where was it? Wait. No. Oh, yeah. Chris Bruno asks, if you weren't an escort worker, in what line of business could you see yourself?
A hooker, a prostitute.
Ironically, I have a passion for car sales. I can see myself being
Manipulating, baiting and switching,
Mercedes, BMW dealership. I like the interaction.
selling lemons. I dig it.
Let me ask you a question. When you were testifying, this is my question. When you were testifying, what was it like to be in the room with Sean Combs, to see him? Did you make eye contact with him? Was he looking at you? Did it feel awkward?
He blew him a kiss.
Listen, man, it was the actual extreme of all of those.
He blew you a kiss.
I think the federal court is set up to intimidate you. The magnitude of the room, it's like
Diddy blew his ass a kiss.
Feet high, the ceiling's 30 feet high. The furniture's huge. You're sitting up high. The judge is high. It's freezing in the room. I walked in and I had literally an anxiety attack. And I consider myself a very calm, cool, collected guy, not easily rattled at all. And by the time I got on the witness stand, I was trembling. And so then to put on top of the understanding that I'm walking in there as a prosecution's witness, so I'm going to assume there's not a favorable thought process with Mr. Combs, his family, anybody involved. So it was very nerve-wracking, man. And I only benefited because I got called to the stand 10 minutes before lunch. And literally just swearing in and answering my name and very preliminary questions, I was losing my voice. I was having trouble talking. And so I'm happy that it broke for lunch. And it took me 20 of the 30-minute lunch to recompose myself. Or I might have had a very different testimony if I didn't have that break time to just kind of get myself together, because it was overwhelming.
Let me, Sheree, stand by. We have more questions coming in, but I want to bring on the other panelists as well. Ben, we haven't had a chance to talk about the verdict. This is something you predicted, though.
Well, I don't know. I went back and forth, but it was, I have to confess, it was a bit of a surprise to me.
Was it something about Cassie's testimony? Was it something about Jane's testimony with respect to sex trafficking? Again, the jury did not believe the prosecution proved beyond a reasonable doubt that they were victims of sex trafficking. What was it? What was the thing that might have been a hang-up?
I thought it was some of the communications, the text messages, which really suggested more of a relationship rather than coercion. That this is, I think it came across as a very, very complicated, unusual relationship, but a relationship.
Yeah. We got super chat questions coming in for you, Ben. So this is from Nancy Nicole. Actually, this is a regular question. Then we'll go to, actually, let me start with a super chat question. Super chat question from JAM. Thank you so much, Ben. Can law address the need for cognitive consent that has often comprised sex crimes when I'm not sure what this means, when something's normalized. But yeah, can the law address the need for cognitive consent that is often compromised in sex crimes? I'm not exactly sure the question, but I throw it to you.
No, it's a very good question, and I don't think really this is something that the law can really define, and that's why I think the jury system is really the best way of obtaining the truth when you're talking about complex human emotions. It's really hard to have bright lines in the law. I think it's something that a jury has to consider, and I think this really is the best way to adjudicate these things.
Without me knowing.
Tyler, Nikki Vale says, do you think if Christina Korum, this is a super chat question, thank you so much. Do you think if Christina Korum testified, the jury would have reached a different verdict?
Probably.
I think that if she testified as a part of conspiracy, it may have
Oh,
helped
is he
the
out,
jury
y'all?
get to a conclusion.
Is he
more
out?
likely to convict on count number 1. But I think as a whole that this jury probably wrestled with the fact that they did not believe this was a conspiracy, a one-man conspiracy with Mr. Combs at the top, and there being no co-conspirators, and then all of the acts of furtherance of this conspiracy led to prostitution, sex trafficking with the 2 victims. I think they really wrestled and not feel like it was enough. That with KK testifying, possibly it could have helped the prosecution out a little more in convincing the jury.
Ben, got a super chat question from Christina Lester. She writes, I have to know this. Please ask Ben. Is he related to Benjamin Chew, prominent Pennsylvania lawyer and jurist and a close friend of George Washington, 1722 to 1810? The people must know.
You have a wonderful viewership and someone who is very keen on history. Yes, that is my ancestor, who was the last crown-appointed chief judge of Pennsylvania. And anybody who is a history buff like your viewer can go see the museum that's in Germantown called Cliveden. And that was Benjamin Chew's house, and it was the site of the Battle of Germantown.
That is awesome. That is amazing. And you had no choice but to become a lawyer. You couldn't be in sales like Mr. Hayes. You couldn't do it. Nope, you couldn't be in that. Nope, you had to be a lawyer. I completely understand. Okay, let me go. Let me go to you, Tyler, on this. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Super chat question. Is it curious how a deadlock jury yesterday could come to a unanimous decision with only the hour the next day? I mean, that is interesting, right? They were deadlocked at the end of the day. They basically said they couldn't, they're unpersuadable, right? Unpersuadable views on both sides. They come back in an hour and find him not guilty of racketeering. Can you explain that?
It's amazing what a good night's sleep could do. They
clearly
not reached that verdict yesterday. They went home. They were told not to discuss this matter, but they slept on it, and they probably were fresh-eyed and ready to go that morning. And I'm pretty sure the foreman said, "Okay, y'all, we slept on it. Where are we at?" And they quickly got to a verdict today, and that's exactly what I think happened.
We have Sierra Gillespie with us, too, out in the field. Sierra, good to see you. First, let us know how crazy it is out there in terms of have you seen more baby oil being sprayed? That's part 1. Part 2, we have a super chat question from Free. Free, thank you so much. I just don't understand why sex trafficking of Cassie even needed to be proven when we had video evidence of her being beaten and dragged back into the room. That seems like a flaw in our system. So first, what's the scene like?
Because at that point, that is no
really
longer
the basis
DD.
of this question is, wasn't sex trafficking of Cassie proven by the 2016 tape?
Wow, these are both really good questions. I'll start with the former first. Is there baby oil present? Confirmed. Yes, there is. Across the street from me at the courthouse, there was in fact baby oil being sprayed over there. And let me tell you, there are literally hundreds of people here.
So they're going to have a freak off tonight.
The NYPD has come and barricaded
Guard your sisters, guard your mamas, guard your kids. They're going to have a freak. So they out there recruiting.
Then across the street at the courthouse, Elizabeth Milner is seemingly stuck inside because they have barricaded everyone kind of over there because honestly it was getting dangerous. A lot of people were getting rowdy, people were spilling over into the street, and this is still a road where people are driving, so it's dangerous for people to be standing in the street, right? So, I mean, it is pretty intense here. There's been cheering. There's kind of been a sense that maybe, just maybe, something wild could happen in this bail hearing, and Diddy himself could stroll out of this courthouse behind me at any moment. We'll see what's going to happen there. So TBD, and of course, we're going to give you updates on that, number one. Number two, talking about the Intercontinental video, the really harrowing video that many of us have seen back when it was leaked in May of 2024. And now, of course, jurors saw it time and again. This is a question mark. How was Diddy found not guilty in terms of sex trafficking with Cassandra Ventura when we have that video? To which I say, I don't know exactly what the jurors were thinking. I don't know what's on their mind, and we're working to hear from some jurors. I hope to one day have them on my show Scandal, or perhaps Jesse on Sidebar with you, so we can really have a sense of what they were talking about in the deliberation room. But as far as the Intercontinental video, yes, it does show domestic violence. We've heard that from Diddy's team. We heard it from Tini Yargos in the openings. We heard it from Diddy himself when he came forward with that video, you know, in which he kind of held up his phone. He had a lot of headroom and he apologized for it. So he straight up admitted it. Yes, it was domestic violence. However, domestic violence and sex trafficking are two completely different things. The government said that this showed retaliation. Cassie was leaving a freak off, and then that's what happened, that he physically assaulted her because she wanted to leave. And I guess the jurors just didn't believe that argument, and that's why they found Diddy not guilty on that particular charge.
So we have more. Thank you so much for that, Sierra. We want to go back to Sheree. I have a couple of questions here for you. So first of all, Tracy Roberts, super chat question. This is just a supporter. Thank you so much. That's so kind. Cleveland Thomas asked a super chat question. I think it's really interesting. From the testimony, Cassie sometimes paid the escorts. Could she have gotten convicted on the Mann Act as well? And I'll answer that, but this is an interesting part. Are the escorts
10%.
the ultimate victims? Now, from a legal point of view, this was about Jane and Cassie being the alleged victims. The escorts not necessarily.
Hold on, let me see how I'm gonna do this.
Having said that, through the course of this, when you think about what was alleged, when you think about what was put forward in this case by the prosecution, do you feel, Trey, do you feel that you are a victim in any of this?
The only part of it I would
he went in
would make me feel victimized, and if this was confirmed, as if my participation did come under a space where Miss Ventura was under duress, where I just unknowingly did not know that she was being forced in some way, and really giving me a really transparent, you know, acting job of, hey, I'm fine with all of this, but deep down inside, there was a scenario where she was being abused and in pure true distress with my interaction. If I unknowingly was put in that scenario to take advantage of a woman unknowingly, and that is outwardly confirmed in my specific participation, then I would feel like a victim.
I understand. I'm curious if the other people that were part of these sexual events would feel the same. Ben, go to you. Do you think Sean Combs is going to be released? Do you think today the judge is going to say, hey, listen, the game's changed. Whatever factors were working for the prosecution months ago, the game's changed.
I got to let it charge up.
I have an instinct that he won't be. I don't think so.
Tyler?
I think he should be released. I think that, you know, bonds are all about what could reasonably ensure that the defendant's not going to flee. And here, the max penalty is 10 years per charge. More than likely, the judge is not going to impose a max, and they're not going to run consecutively. So I think a reasonable bond of $1 million would ensure that he's going to come back and do his sentence. And the fact of the matter is, the government has brought a heavy case against Mr. Combs. Most of those charges have been dismissed now because he's been found not guilty. The remaining two, the question that should be asked is, would he have received a bond if these were the only two charges he was accused of at the time he was indicted? And I think the answer is yes, he would have. It would probably been high, and Mr. Combs could put up a high bond in this case.
Ben,
and he got his own plane, and he can leave.
Question, Papa Seer. Do you think the $20 million alleged settlement with him, still paying $10,000 a month in rent for another victim, do you think that swayed the jury? We are in a recession.
Oh, well, definitely for her.
Right, the settlement that Cassie had with Sean Combs, the idea that Jane was still getting her rent being paid.
Let him rot in jail. He's gonna do it again. He already had plans.
It's a great question, and I think it could have. I think any number of factors, could have entered into the decision. So it's a good question, and I think absolutely it could have affected some of the jurors.
Oh, this is, wow, okay. This is from Sean Love Combs. Okay, this is the account Sean Love Combs. Tyler, super chat question. Thank you, Mr. Combs. Is it possible that if Diddy is released, he will be able to leave America, or would he be able to retrieve his items, the baby oil, the Astroglide? So multiple questions there, Tyler.
Yeah, I think Mr. Combs can afford to buy some more baby oil and Astroglide. There's no way he's going to leave the country. That'll be a clear violation of any terms of bond. I'm pretty sure he's already has surrendered his passport. No commercial airline would.
He got his own. He got his own jet.
That he would not pass the security clearance for it. So
he has his own jet.
Sneak out the country somehow, and that would be pretty insane for Mr. Combs to do that, knowing his ties here, his family.
Oh,
here,
I don't know how to do this
he
now.
has here, and a relatively low chance of him going to jail for a very long time.
Ben, this super chat question from JAM. Thank you so much. May more clinical expert testimony be used in future sexual assault and RICO trials? Trauma and coercion cause prolonged fear. Young witnesses won't come forward now.
Joe won't?
Yeah, I think it will continue to be used. I don't think it was particularly effective here. So I think it's a matter of how good the expert is and how effectively she portrays her information.
Ben Shu, Tyler Bailey, Sheree Hayes, thank you all so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. We are going to continue our coverage here in the sense that Sierra Gillespie is outside the federal courthouse. If there is an update, if there is a significant update in what is going to happen with Sean Combs today, if he is going to be granted release, we will cover it. She will jump on air, talk about what's happening. If we see Sean Combs leave that courthouse, we will cover it. Thank you so much for the terrific, terrific questions. Appreciate all of you.
So now they just outside with no volume. So let me go somewhere else. Where they at? Where they at? So 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock daytime, past 1. Where they at? Yeah, he needs to stay in jail, but they probably not. I wonder how them jurors are gonna feel when they get. Well, they done looked at the news and all of that. That's why they came back with a verdict after being deadlocked, because they found out that they was gonna have to stay. And they was gonna open up the courts another day. And they said, oh shit, no. Hold on, I'm trying to see what. Why ain't nobody talking?
He could, but I think, again, he was under a microscope, so I think that if he was doing that, that's not a good decision because, again, they can use anything against him. And how they were even saying that he was contacting certain
Please
witnesses and all this
double
other
tap your
stuff.
screen. Get
He
the
has
likes up, please.
so
Like, share,
he knows clean, pun intended.
subscribe,
So
join the
I think
membership.
that he had
What
to
time
be,
is it?
tried out.
He's gonna do everything he can do to stay free.
Yes, let's take another call real quick. Who's backstage? ATM, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Michigan right now. Tasha K.
Shout out to Michigan. What's going on?
So, I got a couple things to say. And I got to be fully transparent. I never heard back from y'all, but I'm getting to the Diddy case. Mona Lisa Brown. I was supposed to be working with y'all on that script, but we leave it alone for right now.
Man,
We
gone.
had a meeting about working on that. But anyway, I
I'm
just
not a
want
part of the movie department. I'm an actress.
to. Come on, I mean, I already know. This was a couple years ago. This is anyway. I'm leaving it alone. I'm leaving it alone. This
They should have been sequestered.
What's going on? But anyway, so as it relates to Diddy, which me and your husband had talked about before,
They should have been sequestered. And they phones and cell phones and everything should have been that. When they go to the Diddy parties, they got to turn in their phones and cell phones. Yeah.
Quincy Brown. That's technically not his son. They was illegally adopted, whatever, from LB Shore. And
No, it was
my
not.
experience, he was on Sweet 16. So my experience just before Kim Porter died, I did the show with them, whatever. Got invited to Kim Porter birthday party. Everything was cool. They were very respectful. So that's my experience I had with him. However, as it relates to like the court cases and things of that nature, my only issue is.
Can I get 5 people to double tap your screen and hit the like button, please?
First time, yeah, that's cool. And you might not understand certain
Double tap or hit the like button.
a habit of being around a certain situation.
Glad they didn't railroad a black man. He railroaded himself. You should have been saying, you sad that he got away with aping black women. Where that said? Apply pressure. You okay with him taking cookies from black women? Beating black women? You okay with that? You okay with him forcing black women to sleep with male hookers without condoms? You okay with that apply pressure? Would you let your mama, sister, kids, nieces, and nephews, cause he aped a man too? How you didn't hear that he? Okay, shut up. How you didn't hear that he aped somebody?
I think they handled it the wrong way. Like
shut up. Shut up. You can't even answer the question without defending the man. So are you a booty eater too? You eat ass? You can't even answer a question without coming back to a defense of, You cannot even intelligently answer the question. Because the answer is no, you would not be okay with that. Bottom line. So you avoid the answer. You're an ass eater. You like that. Take that, take that. Change your name to take that, take that. Yeah, that's what you do. Can I get 5 people to double tap the screen and hit the like? I'm not mad. If I came up, I'm not mad. I'm just tripping on these black men making excuses for it and will be okay with him aping, forcing somebody in his family, someone that he loves, to have to be dragged back into a damn room to sleep with a paid male hooker without protection, and you got sores and shit all in your mouth. You okay with that? Cause I'm sure you gonna say you ain't heard of no sores in the mouth. What the hell? What the hell? If somebody is dragged back into a hotel room to have SEX with a paid male prostitute, that is ape. That is ape. What the hell is wrong with you? Apply pressure? She was leaving. She didn't want to that time. That time, she did not want to. She was beat and drugged back into the room to have SEX with a paid male prostitute. What is that called? Applied pressure. Okay, so you can't answer. Bye. You can't answer. You playing dumb. You like your ass ate out by Diddy. Shut up. You're an ass eater. If you can't answer, you're an ass eater. Bottom line. That's my rules, my platform. How about that? Now go sit in the corner and think about. Answer the question. If you can't answer the questions over here, I'm putting that ass in time out. I'm telling you that now. So shut up. Don't say nothing, because I'm going to ask you a question. And if you can't answer it and you try to move, go, or gaslight any of that manipulative, narcissistic shit, I'm putting you in time out. You going to answer or you going to shut the up. Okay? My rules. And you're not going to force me otherwise. That Diddy strong arm shit don't work over here. Let's be clear. Precious say, Laquita, I ain't mad. Because I know good and damn well there couldn't be no female in my family. Not one. Because baby, he wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have to worry about it. We would not have to worry about if he going home or not. I am not justifying or co-signing not one predator. I don't give a damn who it is. Male or female. They gonna learn Willis Spencer. They gonna learn. They gonna learn today. They gonna learn today. Not tomorrow. Today. Get your ass on. They heavily police. Why they done cut the volume down? They got plenty of popos out there though. We predator free. They was out there trying to threaten Tisa Tez, trying to beat her up. Y'all crazy as hell. They got that Diddy spirit. They got that Diddy spirit. Leave that woman alone. He walk out there, one of them victims' family members may send him to his maker. They better stop. They better sit down. They better leave people alone. They better leave him in there. But they probably not. They're going to let him out. He going to do it again. Yeah, he wasn't on his knees praying before. Now he calling out to God. Maybe that's what he needed, because he definitely had made deals with the devil. And he admitted that he was in very dark places. And dark is the devil. The light is Christ. He did not say he was in the light. He said he was in the dark. Yeah. Those was his words, not mine. Who was gunned down in Missouri?
In an overflow room and listen.
I hope you're right, Teray.
Judge told the jury how to interpret the law. That conversation is extremely important. That's like the referee laying down the.
Yeah, but they didn't follow it.
But they do it. The Pope is black. You can't convince me he's not.
He's black like Mary.
Where the other? Oh, she back there. They're gonna be in a freak out tonight. Yeah, ain't nobody safe. Three original managers. Three original manager was gunned down in Oak Cliff. Which original? His original manager. What was the original manager name? What was three original managers' name? Where you find it at? Cassie legal team react.
Shrimp is the fruit of the sea. You can barbecue it, boil it.
Three.
She doesn't need it. Boil it, bake.
Oh, he's so funny. You know, I ain't gonna even bring up his name. Oh, I see Rico. I see Rico now when he was up there talking to them strippers. Now he outside the courtroom dancing around like he was like he didn't see Rico. Now you don't see Rico. Y'all such hypocrites. Ain't solid on shit. He got away with a slap on his wrist. Yeah, he did, but I hope they let his ass go experience what the federal penitentiary look like so he can know what to expect as soon as he break the guidelines, because he don't follow rules. He don't follow rules. What's three original manager's name? I don't remember. I don't remember his name. A $1 million bond. They say he's no longer a billionaire. Now, if one thing they got right, he's no longer a billionaire.
Shrimp is the fruit of the sea.
That status is over. I can't remember his.
He is facing 5 separate.
I don't remember his name.
He told me he was 23, but actually he turned out to be 32, and he was lying, and he had a daughter that was my age, that was almost my age. So it was just too much for me.
So you
I was just like, no, I'm in too deep, I'm too young, and it was just, I was just going down the wrong path. And
So that grown man was having sex with you, John?
No, it was foreplay. It was, you know, I was doing something to him and he was doing stuff to me, but it was,
That's still sexual activity.
Yeah, they justify it. They minimize it.
The mere act of a grown man saying that he's 23, and that used to happen to me a lot. I remember I was 12 years old walking home from middle school, and a dude stopped me on a motorcycle. I think he was dating my cousin at the time. And he had stopped me and was like, yo, you looking good. You know, I had on my little volleyball shorts. And he was like, can I get your number? I'm like, no, you messing with my cousin. My cousin was a year older than me. I was 12. She was 13. I had saw my cousin maybe a few months ago. She was pregnant.
Oh, my God.
Oh my God, I thank God I got out of that whole situation because I probably would have been one of those girls get caught up with
No, listen, I appreciate you sharing that story. Thank you so much. But they did say Black Rob had a low T-cell account. But listen, we got Ray J back. Ray J, come on back in here.
All right. Listen, can y'all bring me up? Yo, look, because I need to be on everybody else.
Sit up.
Okay, that's cool.
Or bring your camera down just a little bit. Bring it down.
That's what she told me last night. Hold on. I know that's very distasteful in what we're talking about right now.
Well, it's fine, Ray J. You're Ray J. You know. Okay. I was just trying to figure out, like, when we were
Stop making excuses for these perverts. Y'all, I'll be back. I don't want to listen. They ain't got nothing going. I'll be back. Let me charge up my phone. Yeah, because that Ray J stuff is tripping. I don't know. That I don't like. I don't like.
Hell, because you're so used to it. Like the girl.
What is this? I don't like them making fun of the situation because that just means that they are going to do it again.
What do I have to do? What do I need to,
They're going. Ooh, it's a heavy police presence. That just means that they are going to do it again. Can y'all please hit the like button for AunTeaFee as you exit? Let me find out what's going on with Mo3. Let me find out what's going on with Mo3. I'll be back, y'all.